Chapter 1235. How stubborn. Where is Kang Tae-chu? Is he a coward? How dare he let a woman stop the army of the pre-Qin dynasty? Then, another ray of white light flew over. It was Yu Fenghua. Stepping on a meter-long jade ruler, she floated over like an immortal. Her temperament was ethereal, just like an immortal. Behind her, Yin Chaoga also arrived with the overlords of Yinshu. Each of them was more powerful than an immortal state overlord. That's the mountain-splitting ruler. In the crowd, the old ancestor of the Ying family was shocked, and his eyes were serious. Legend has it that Yu the Great used the living soil, the mountain-splitting ruler, the He Tu, and the Luo Shu with a dragon to open up the mountains and dredge the rivers. This mountain-splitting ruler is a precious treasure. It's so powerful that it can move mountains, fill seas, and turn land into rivers. Huang Linge remained calm and said coldly, "We don't need the Tianqing school to deal with you. We are enough." "Huang Linge, I've heard of you." Yu Fenghua looked down at Huang Linge and said disdainfully, "After being played by Kang Tae-chu, you abandoned him. If I were you, I would kill Kang Tae-chu and Zhao Xueqing to avenge you." Her appearance was peerlessly beautiful, but her words were extremely harsh and vicious. "Now, he's hiding in the back and letting you, a woman, stand up for him. He's a heartless man. But you still shamelessly clung to Jiang Taichu's side. You were willing to be his slave, to be his servant, and to take his blows. You're a disgrace to all the women in the world." "That's right." Jiang Taichu was still dreaming of having multiple wives and concubines. He was simply a big pig trotter. "Damn it!" Shi Mengwan shouted. However, she forgot that after Li Fifan drove her out of the house, he immediately remarried. She was pitifully kneeling on the ground and begging for him to marry her. She was willing to be his mistress. However, Li Fifan was afraid that Jiang Tian would ask about it, so he didn't dare to answer and beat her up again. She was already like that to Li Fifan. If Jiang Tian waved his finger, she would crawl to him like a bitch. Kang Tae-chu let a woman take a blow for him. He's a coward. We should beat him down and stomp on him 10,000 times. Cute Li also shouted to her fans in the live stream. Down with the pig trotter Kang Tae-chu. Huang Linge, you've degraded yourself and are shameless. No wonder you're called a woman. Wan Wan also shouted. Hearing this, Sita Xiao, Chao Shixiang and other people who knew the inside story looked at Huang Linge nervously and worriedly. They hated Yu Fenghua for being so vicious. This was Huang Linge's sore point. If it was provoked, it would probably turn into an inner demon. She would be at a disadvantage in the next battle. "You're an outsider. What right do you have to say about love?" Huang Linge's face was as calm as still water, unmoved. She smiled faintly and said softly, "Now is the time to decide the future and fate of mankind. You and I are in a battle of right and wrong. Love should be put aside. I'm not only fighting for Kang Tae-chu and Tianqing School, but also for the continuation of human civilization and the safety of Earth. But you're talking about other people's love affairs behind their backs. You're really a gossipy woman. Boring. What's the difference between you and a village woman? You claim to be the descendant of Emperor Yu and the descendant of the famous families of the Qin dynasty. You're a disgrace to your ancestors." Her tone wasn't high, but every word she said hit the nail on the head. Every word was powerful and resonant. It was as if a series of crisp slaps had struck Yu Fenghua's face, causing her beautiful face to turn completely red, and she was extremely embarrassed. Ancestral patriarch Shenlong gave her a thumbs up and praised. "This woman is soft on the outside but tough on the inside. She's as ambitious as any man. No wonder she's Kang Tae-chu's woman. She's really courting death. With the deity trap array, she's at most a third-level foundation establishment cultivator. How dare she be so arrogant and disrespect the famous families of the Qin dynasty?" Jiang Feibai, Yin Chaoga, and Yu Jingtian were all from the major families of the Qin dynasty. They sneered as if they were looking at ants. Under the suppression of the deity trap array and the lack of spirit qi, all the overlords except the famous families of the Qin dynasty stopped at the third-level foundation establishment Cultivator. As for Yu Fenghua, she was a genuine fake core cultivator. How powerful was Yu Fenghua? She could destroy the back of Mount Amei with her bare hands and kill foundation establishment cultivators as easily as killing chickens. Bitch, you're courting death. Yu Fenghua flew into a rage out of humiliation. She was from a prestigious family, possessed a high status, possessed great ability, and was renowned for her wisdom and intelligence. Since she stepped onto the path of cultivation, she was like a goddess. When had she ever suffered such disrespect and belittlement? Try me. Huang Linger said coldly. What a sharp-tongued little bitch. Today, I'll tear your mouth apart and feed it to the dogs. Yu Fenghua jumped out of her hand with the mountain-splitting ruler. She was seething with killing intent, and her dantian rumbled. She waved her hand casually, slashing it through the air toward Huang Linger. As the mountain-splitting ruler swept across, the earth shook violently and a terrifying earth vein qi gushed out. The sky changed color and the sun and moon turned upside down. Rumble. On the ground, giant mountains grew out of nowhere. Countless boulders and soil surged like tides and formed a giant earth dragon about 100 meters long. The earth dragon was surrounded by yellow earth qi. It was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws like a living creature and charged at Huang Linger with extreme power. She's dead. That bitch is dead. Kang Taechu, you coward. Look, your woman is about to be beaten to death. Shi Mengwan, Cutie Li, and Wan Wan were all live-streaming on the internet. They cheered for Yu Fenghua and scolded Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. Go away. Huang Linger shouted angrily. Behind this woman, the green spiritual wood aura surged like a tide, and the shadow of a big tree quickly rose from her back. This tree was completely condensed from second wood essence. It was a few hundred meters tall, and its branches danced like giant pythons. Its leaves were verdant and lush, and even its charming face was burning green. A huge pressure was brewing on her body. Suddenly, the shadow of the tree rose to 1,000 meters tall again. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. What's that? Dharma form? Not only the onlookers, but also the people of the pre-Qin dynasty exclaimed. Dharma form was at least a false core overlord or a golden core overlord. Was this woman a golden core cultivator? But damn! Countless tentacle-like branches bound the giant earth dragon tightly. They swung it around and smashed it to the ground with a clang. Rumble. The ground shook violently as if a cannon had been fired. A giant mushroom cloud rose in the sky and the earth dragon broke into pieces. Yu Fenghua's delicate body trembled violently, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face instantly became as pale as a sheet of paper. She was extremely shocked and cried out involuntarily, she has formed a Dharma form. She's a golden core overlord or at least a false core cultivator. But how is that possible? She had always thought that Jiang Tian and his disciples were below the third level of the foundation establishment level. She had been too careless and didn't expect him to use the power of a Dharma form. She was caught off guard and didn't have time to withdraw her golden core Dharma form. She was severely injured. Everyone went silent. They couldn't believe what they had seen. A false core cultivator. How is that possible? The deity trap array has never been activated except on the day the Azure Mystic sect disciple died. Yin Chaoge, Jimai, Jiang Feibai, and the others all turned pale with disbelief. Even Yu Jingtian seemed to be in deep thought. But they didn't know. Before Jiang Tian left the Heavenly Clear sect and flew to the Death Hill, he had once chopped off a section of the whirling greenwood as the foundation for her would attribute immortal physique. He also taught her the method to forge an immortal physique and change her constitution. Besides, Jiang Tian had obtained many golden cores, grand medicines and spirit herbs after the Scourge world and the heavenly state. He had also made dozens of supreme treasure medicines for her to forge a deity body. Now, Her azure wood deity body had reached the initial success level and she had reached the false core level, comparable to Yu Fenghua. However, Jiang Tian had already sensed the existence of the deity trap array when Li Longyuan's son, the Azure Mystic Sect disciple, invaded. How could he not have a countermeasure? He had already taught Qing'er the art of deceiving the heavens, and asked Qing'er to teach it to her disciples to suppress and hide their power. Jiang Tian's cultivation method was extremely powerful. Although the heaven-deceiving mysterious art was not as heaven-defying as the thick earth divine suppressing chains and could not be considered a supreme divine art, it was still a true immortal emperor-level cultivation method. It contained the Tao laws of heaven and earth. Even if they only comprehended 10 to 20% of it, they could still deceive the heavens and cross the sea, and escape from the crude and simple immortal trap great formation in Jiang Tian's eyes. So, even though many disciples had broken through and surpassed the third level of the foundation establishment level, they had never touched the deity trap array. Those famous pre-Qin sects worshipped the deity trap array like a god and only watched to see if there were any fluctuations. How could they know? Ah! I'm going to kill you. Yu Fenghua's hair was messy and her clothes were stained with blood. She didn't want to accept such a defeat. Her dantian was destroyed and her golden core was damaged. She wanted to kill Huang Linger to avenge herself. As she roared, her hair fluttered like a waterfall. Her dantian rumbled, and streams of earth aura, as heavy as mountains, pressed down on Huang Linger. With a sweep of the mountain-splitting ruler, huge rocks that were 100 meters tall soared into the air and shot toward Huang Linger like cannonballs. You've gone too far. Huang Linger was merciful. She didn't want to kill at first, but she was furious when she saw Yu Fenghua being so aggressive. She stomped on the ground with her right foot. With a swish, a glittering and translucent azure wood thorn appeared, as if it were carved out of jade, but it was so sharp that it could pierce through an aircraft carrier. Swish! 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 Those azure wood thorns pierced through many stones, earth dragons, and earth chi at lightning speed, then disappeared in front of Yu Fenghua and shot out behind her back with a curtain of blood. When those azure wood thorns flew back to Huang Linger's dantian and sea of chi, Yu Fenghua was bleeding and fell to the ground like a sieve. Even her divine soul and golden core had been riddled with holes. Blood constantly seeped out of her mouth and her beautiful eyes were still wide open, as if she couldn't believe that she was so pale when she had just made her debut and hadn't even reached her peak. Whoosh! The whole place was silent. No one was able to utter a single word. Everyone was stupefied as they watched this scene. They didn't dare to believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 1236. Yu Fenghua had been defeated. He had been defeated by this seemingly delicate and weak female disciple. She was the pride of the Yu family, the descendant of a famous family. How could she be defeated in 2 moves? She didn't know that the wood element was better than the earth element. The wood element was the bane of the earth element's true essence. Besides, Huang Linger had formed a deity body, which was a rare constitution even in the central galaxy or the cultivation world. Yu Fenghua had indeed cultivated earth element true essence, but she didn't have an earth element spirit body. How could she be Linger's match? This woman is quite powerful. Shi Mengwan, Wan Wan, and the others who had come to watch were dumbfounded. They couldn't say a word. In front of the screen, hundreds of millions of people who were watching the live stream were also dumbfounded. They were as still as statues. How is that possible? Yin Chaoge, Ji Mai and Jiang Feibai were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. Just then, they had mocked Jiang Tian, thinking that Jiang Tian was too weak and didn't dare to come out because he was afraid of the famous families of the pre-Qin dynasty. But now, when Jiang Tian's disciple made a move, he easily defeated the outstanding talents among them. Even the proud daughters of heaven had their faces slapped swollen. What a cruel woman! Yu Jingtian hurriedly checked on Yu Fenghua's injuries and fed her some healing pills. However, he felt as if his heart was being stabbed by a knife. His widened eyes were twitching rapidly. That was his sister, but she had been injured by Kang Teichu's disciple. Yu Fenghua's injuries weren't fatal, but her dantian and meridians had been damaged. It would be detrimental to her cultivation in the future and she might not be able to improve. Who else dares to stop Tianqing School's Spirit Qi revival plan? Come. Huang Linger said. This woman is so arrogant. Yu Jingtian's eyes twitched. Jiang Feibai's face was as pale as paper. Ji Mai's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Yin Chaoge gritted his teeth, but he didn't dare to step forward. Although their cultivation was a bit higher than Yu Fenghua's, they were still on the same level. They were all in the false core stage. However, Huang Linger had defeated Yu Fenghua in an instant. This caused them to have no confidence that they would win. They were not 100% confident. Even an eagle uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. Yin Chaoge suddenly laughed ferociously and said coldly, "This woman is a demoness and a demon. She has harmed the world. Today, for the sake of the common people, let's ignore the rules of the Jianghu. Let's kill her together." That's right. There's no point in talking to such vicious and stubborn people. Just kill them. Yu Jingtian's murderous aura soared. He harumphed coldly and nodded. Shameless people. You're a group of men, yet you're bullying a weak girl. Do you have any shame? Chao Jianjia was furious when she saw this. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shouted angrily. But no one paid any attention to him. In the blink of an eye, the descendants of several famous sects took advantage of the terrain and attacked Huang Linger from all directions, ruthlessly and mercilessly. Dozens of miles away, on a mountain peak, a young man in a long robe stood quietly and looked at the battlefield calmly. The cool mountain breeze blew at the corner of his white robe, making him look otherworldly and otherworldly, like an immortal descending to the mortal world. A yellow-robed old monk in a loose robe with wide sleeves and straw sandals stood behind him in a servile manner. Jiang Tian and Lian Sheng had arrived. Seeing so many strong practitioners on the battlefield, Lian Sheng's eyes shone fiercely. He asked carefully, "Master, they are too ruthless. Are we still not going to do anything? An unpolished jade is useless. Ling has too little experience in battles, so her battle awareness is weak." Jiang Tian looked indifferent and said calmly, "This is a rare opportunity for Ling This is a rare opportunity for Ling to gain experience. Let her hold on for a while longer. Moreover, you, me, and Patriarch Shenlong are all here. Nothing will happen to her. Master is right. I can't bear to see this group of people showing off their strength." Lian Sheng and old Rulai nodded respectfully and looked at the battlefield coldly. "Aunt, how dare you kill the descendant of the Yu family? Die!" Yu Jingtian's eyes were cold as he shook his hand. Boom! The ancient bronze cauldron flew out and became bigger. It fell from a height of a few hundred meters and smashed down like a villa. "Kill!" Huang Linger's delicate voice was like tearing a piece of silk. Behind him, countless green tree branches and vines rose into the air like dragons, forcibly supporting the huge cauldron. "Suppress!" Yu Jingtian gritted his teeth and slapped down. A huge palm that was more than 100 meters long pressed down on the ancient bronze cauldron. Instantly, the ancient bronze cauldron sank rapidly. Crack, crack. Countless green branches were crushed. Wood shavings flew everywhere and pieces of wood shot out. Wood elemental spirit qi surged like a tide. "I'll kill you." Yin Zhaoge sneered. An item flew out from his dantian. It was a pair of scissors that shone with golden light. The scissors became bigger with the wind. The blade was serrated and shone with a cold light. The handle of the scissors was like a dragon's tail. It looked like two huge golden flood dragons were intertwined. The two blades were like the mouths of the flood dragons. Could it be the golden flood dragon scissors? Seeing this, Hua Qingtian was shocked. This was also an infamous killing weapon during the investiture of the gods period. Legend had it that it was refined by the power of the 9-dragon cauldron for 81 days. Together with the Chaos Essence Golden Chalice, it was given by the Prime of Tong Tian to his disciple, the three Sky Fairies. Later, it fell into the hands of the famous sects in the Yin ruins. This treasure was unfathomable and possessed immense power. Many virtuous paragons and experts during the apotheosized period had died in it. It was stained with the blood of countless heroes. The golden flood dragon scissors was as fast as lightning. It was like the mouth of a flood dragon. It kept opening and closing as it went toward Huang Linger. Suddenly, the vines, trunks, and branches that were blocking it were all broken. It was about to reach Huang Linger. In the blink of an eye, the branches that were supporting the ancient bronze cauldron were cut by the golden flood dragon scissors. With a boom, the ancient bronze cauldron fell like a mountain. Despicable. Huang Linger reacted quickly. She flipped and dodged the giant cauldron's foot. Using the momentum of the rotation, she flew up into the sky. She waved her heavenly origin wooden staff and the green Yi-wood chi gushed out. It turned into sharp wooden thorns, rolling logs, wooden swords, and wooden spears that shot in all directions. Although it was dangerous, it was not weaker than the others. At this time, Ji Mai and Jiang Feibai also took out their Dharma treasures and attacked Huang Linger ruthlessly. Huang Linger was instantly surrounded by the four descendants of the famous pseudo-core sections. It was a peerless killing situation. Originally, with Huang Linger's Yi-wood immortal physique, even if it was only at greater mastery, she was not afraid of facing four people of the same cultivation level. However, she started cultivating too late and condensing her immortal physique only happened a few months ago. Her strength was greatly reduced because of her minor mastery immortal physique. The descendants of the famous pre-Qin sects were all at the pseudo-core level and had supreme Dharma treasures from the apotheosized period. They were all true artifacts and were 10 times more powerful than normal pseudo-core cultivators. Besides, they often practiced together and cooperated well. Huang Linger was gradually at a disadvantage. You're trying to win with numbers. You've gone too far. At this time, Hua Qingtian couldn't hold back anymore. He shouted and dispersed the heaven-deceiving art. He unleashed his power at the pseudo-core level and released his flying sword. He wanted to join the battle and save Huang Linger. Stop him. Don't let him go up. Let's kill this little girl first. But immediately, some pre-Qin Qi refinement families released their Dharma treasures from afar to break the defensive array and attack the spirit-guiding array. How shameless! Hua Qingtian was so angry that his teeth were almost broken. He had to take back his flying sword and return to the spirit-gathering array to defend against the attacks. These spirit-guiding arrays and spirit creation wells were the result of the efforts of Jiang Tian and the whole sect. They could even be said to be the crystallization of human science and cultivation civilization. Moreover, in order to revive the spirit qi, Jiang Tian's treasury had been used up to create these spirit-guiding arrays and spirit creation wells. Once they were destroyed, there was no telling when they would be able to create another set. It was very likely that they would never be able to revive the spirit qi. Ha ha ha, the famous pre-Qin sects are really smart. Kang Teichu's disciples were fooled like idiots. They thought that the other party would keep his promise and fight one-on-one just because he issued a challenge and decided to decide the winner in 3 rounds. So they didn't make sufficient preparations. Too pedantic. What a moron. If all the experts of Tianqing school were here, they might be able to hold on for a while. But now, haha, Shi Mengwan and the others were cheering. Jiang Tian's enemies and opponents were also gloating. Huang Linger used all her strength, but the other party had the advantage of numbers. Their cultivation was on par with hers, and they also had many true treasure or quasi-true treasure magical treasures in their hands. She fell into a passive position and was beaten back again and again. At this time, violent waves of Dharma power attacked. Huang Linger felt that she couldn't even move her fingers. Every move she made was extremely difficult. Her hair was disheveled and stuck to her forehead that was sweating profusely. Her face was flushed red. She was dodging left and right. She was in a sorry state. You're too despicable. What kind of orthodox sect are you? What kind of descendants are you? You're shameless. Chao Jianjia shouted angrily. She flew up to help, but her cultivation was too low. She was directly bounced back by the violent waves of Dharma power. Little girl, this is a war, not a Jianghu fight. Childish. Yu Jingtian's eyes were fixed on Huang Ling. His handsome face was emotionless and cold. He shook the cauldron back and forth. Each wave of attacks was stronger than the previous one. Huang Ling, was sent flying in the air like a bird. We're despicable. Kang Taechu is the despicable one. We challenged Kang Taechu to a fight, but he didn't dare to show himself. This disciple of his dares to charge at us. She deserves to be killed. Yin Chaoga sneered proudly. The golden dragon scissors turned into two dragon shadows and attacked Huang Linger crazily. Taichu's sect master is the ruler of the four realms. He has killed countless ants like you. Huang Linger blocked and shouted angrily. He doesn't need to be afraid of you. He's in seclusion. Besides, the few of us are more than enough to kill you. Little girl, how dare you be so arrogant? At this time, Yu Fenghua had already used a secret technique to refine the healing pills and healed her wounds. She stood up and laughed coldly. In your eyes, Kang Taechu is like a god. But in the eyes of the orthodox sect, he's just an ant. Letting him be a servant of the Pre-Qin dynasty is already an act of mercy. It's already an honor for him. It's his great honor. She was arrogant and said arrogantly, kneel and surrender immediately. Become a servant or we'll kill you. Chapter 1237. You want me to kneel and surrender? Dream on. Huang Linger was not afraid at all. She was furious and attacked even more fiercely. Kill him. At this time, the descendants of the Qin dynasty's famous sects were all ready to kill. Immediately, many Dharma treasures attacked Huang Linger. Swish. Swish. A golden rope swept out from Jiang Feibai's hand like a golden poisonous snake. It was as fast as lightning and firmly tied up Huang Linger. Immortal binding rope. The top treasure of the investiture of the gods. Seeing this, Hua Qingtian's heart sank when he saw this from the corner of his eye. Open! Huang Linger shouted angrily. The surging green wood qi turned into swords and blades that could cut through diamond and cut outside. However, it could not do anything to the rope at all. Even her Dharma power was restrained. She could not help but turn pale with fright. After all, this was a famous existence in the investiture of the gods. It was used by Zhu Lusun, one of the 12 golden immortals of the Chan sect. It was a quasi-true artifact that could change according to the user's size. Its strength was not to be underestimated. Die! Yu Jingtian sneered. He stepped forward and made a gesture with his fingers. Boom! There was a loud noise. The ancient bronze cauldron shone with a green light and quickly expanded into the size of a small mountain. It covered the sky and the sun and smashed down on Huang Linger's head. Humph! If Kang Taechu doesn't come out, we'll kill his disciple. Let's see how long he can hide. Yin Chaoga laughed strangely. The two golden dragons formed by the golden dragon scissors bit Huang Linger's chest. Hua Xia, when did you mortals have the right to speak? Ji Mai sneered. His eyes were cold. He swung the golden dragon scissors and slashed at Huang Linger's back. At this moment, it was a peerless killing situation. No one could save Huang Linger. Hua Qingtian blocked many attacks and guarded the soul-channeling array. He could not help but shout anxiously, Daoist Junlong, are you still not going to help? In the face of the threat of death and the attacks coming from all directions, Yi Zichen had no choice but to accept them. Huang Linger was in despair, but she was surprisingly calm. She only felt a little regretful. I didn't protect the Great Spirit guiding formation well. I'm afraid he'll be a little disappointed with me when he finds out. Very good. Suddenly, a sneer was heard. The sneer suddenly turned into a roar, I'd like to see who can kill my Kang Tae-chu's men today. This explosive shout was like the roar of a dragon, like the collapse of the heavens and the earth. Instantly, the mountain rocks exploded, and the clouds and mist dispersed like boiling water. Heaven and earth changed color, and the sun and moon were hanging upside down. The entire area of the back of Mount Ame was shaking violently, and everything was in chaos. A loud shout could be heard, but the person had yet to arrive. However, Huang Linger's heart was already at ease after hearing his voice. She no longer had the slightest fear or worry. Although she had experienced the battle of the Heavenly Kingdom, and her temperament had long been as steady as Mount Tai, far surpassing that of ordinary people, in the face of the threat of death and the siege of 4 false core powerhouses, this woman's heart was definitely still a little scared. However, in the fierce battle, her adrenaline was rapidly secreted. She simply did not know pain, and she also forgot about fear. However, at this moment, she completely relaxed and calmed down. There was no longer the slightest fear, and she even revealed a mocking smile. The anger on Hua Qingtian's face also turned into gloating. Jiang Tian originally did not intend to take part in this battle with many hidden forces. It was completely for the sake of training his disciples. Otherwise, if the 4 nascent soul-old monsters attacked together, they would not be able to survive. However, the famous Pre-Qin sects were too aggressive now. Jiang Tian had no choice but to take action. Once Jiang Tian took action, he would definitely crush them with absolute strength. He would definitely be ruthless and eliminate the root of the problem. In fact, even before Jiang Tian arrived, his terrifying spiritual energy had already frozen many of the magical treasures. Even the deity constricting rope was frozen stiff and fell to the ground. Taking advantage of this time, Huang Linger retreated and landed beside Hua Qingtian and ancestor Zhenlong. She looked at the sky with anticipation and excitement. Who is it? The power of one roar was able to erase the spiritual energy of our magical treasures. Although it was only for a moment, it was still terrifying. Could it be Kang Tae-chu? Yu Jingtian and his sister, Yin Chaoge, Jimai, Jiang Feibai, and the others all looked up at the sky. Their faces were extremely solemn, and a trace of fear flashed across their eyes. Unknowingly, a tall and handsome figure stood in the sky with his hands behind his back. His white robe fluttered in the wind, his eyes were as bright as the stars, and his handsome face was flawless. He was like a god that had descended to the mortal world. Kang Tae-chu. When did he arrive? Seeing this, the descendants of the major sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty were even more shocked. In fact, Jiang Tian was already very close, but their sharp divine senses did not detect him. It was evident that Jiang Tian was definitely something. I didn't come out of seclusion. The reason why I released so much information is that I wanted to give you a chance to live on account of the great contributions your ancestors made to the Huaxia civilization. I want you to know when to stop and retreat. The next moment, Jiang Tian stepped down from the sky and landed in front of Huang Linger. He faced the many overlords and said calmly. However, you took my concession and my kindness as weakness and thought that I was afraid of you. You took my threat as a bluff. In fact, that's not the case. You are not qualified to compete with me, Kang Tae-chu. If I come out of seclusion, I will crush you like chickens and dogs. Even if your seniors are here in person, your ancestors might not be able to defeat me. The entire place was dead silent. Then, like a market, it became extremely noisy and noisy. Countless onlookers' eyes almost popped out when they heard this. They looked at the arrogant Jiang Tian in shock as if they had seen a madman. Is he going to challenge all the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty alone? What did this madman say? He's not even afraid of the ancestors of the Pre-Qin dynasty. They are Yu the Great, Shang Tang, King Wu of Zhou, and Jiang Xia. Which one of them is not as powerful as the gods? Among them, there is no lack of founders of the Huaxia civilization and the source of cultivation methods. This guy is really not afraid of the wind cutting his tongue. Arrogant. There is no end to his arrogance. Yu the Great is one of the founders of the Great Xia civilization. Kang Tae-chu dares to be disrespectful to him. Isn't he forgetting his ancestors? Everyone doubted their ears, especially Shi Mengwan and the others, who were inciting the emotions of the netizens in the live broadcast room. This is simply a fancy way of courting death. Even Yi Yuhui and the others of the League of Defenders of Hua Xia were shocked and couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian was very powerful. He had once swept through 3 dimensions. Such a glorious record could be said to be earth-shattering and unprecedented. Reclusive royalty was something that the Holy See, Brahmin, and Kunlun sect on earth paled in comparison. However, Jiang Tian was facing the descendants of the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty, the Orthodox Xianmen sect. Now, everyone had figured it out. The Ruins of Immortality was built by Emperor Zhongli, the leader of the escapees, in order to preserve the roots of the ancient earth during the Battle of Immortals. The current Earth was the foundation and homeland of the Ruins of Immortality. Emperor Yu, the ruler of the Great Xia, was a staunch rebel. He guarded the Earth and had the same status and strength as Emperor Zhongli. If that was the case, the Dharma treasures and resources left by Emperor Sheng, the lords of the various dimensions, and Yu the Great should be equal. The resources of Emperor Yu the Great were at least not much less than that of Emperor Zhongli. If that was the case, then what was the big deal about Jiang Tian sweeping through 3-dimensional worlds? After all, he didn't take down the Ruins of Immortality after killing Emperor Sheng. How could he be qualified to challenge the descendants of Emperor Yu the Great and the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty? You're too arrogant. You're courting death. As for Jiang Feibai and Yin Chaoga, their faces were extremely gloomy and they glared at Jiang Tian. Kang Tae-chu, you're indeed arrogant. How dare you slander and belittle the ancestor of Hua Xia? Do you really have to do this? Yu Jingtian carefully sized up Jiang Tian. Suddenly, he let out a sinister laugh. His expression was filled with ridicule as he said, I'll call you Sect Master Jiang out of respect. If I don't, you're just a weakling at the 3rd level of the Foundation establishment level. You're just a piece of trash who relies on women to support him. I can crush you to pieces with a wave of my hand. In fact, he should have been wary of Jiang Tian. After all, Huang Linger had displayed the power of a fake core cultivator and showed her Dharma form to defeat Yu Fenghua. As Huang Linger's teacher, Jiang Tian wouldn't be weak at all. After all, Jiang Tian had also released part of the videos and the power shown in them was extremely terrifying. He had carefully scanned Jiang Tian's Dantian with his immortal will and found that he was indeed only at the 3rd level of the Foundation establishment level. As the founder of the Great Xia, Emperor Yu the Great didn't just control the flood, he also suppressed many monsters. During this entire process, he'd created the all-seeing eye technique, and it was extremely clear. Not only was it capable of observing mountains and rivers, it was even capable of distinguishing evil spirits and demons. In the ancient times, many monsters ran rampant. They could create illusions, form Dharma forms and even take human form. Some Qi refinement cultivators could even create external avatars. However, all of these abilities couldn't hide from the all-seeing eye, and their true forms were revealed. Illusions were basically immortal will divine powers used to confuse people. As long as the opponent's immortal will was strong enough or had a special Dharma art to break illusions, they could immediately see through it. The Dharma golden body was formed by using immortal will to activate the golden core and the Sarira to form a new body. It was like a clone that could replace the original body to attack. However, it still couldn't exist without the original body. If the original body and the golden core were destroyed, the Dharma form would also disappear. The most powerful one was the external avatars. They could steal the creation of the world and were extremely exquisite. Every external avatar was like the original body. It was a brand new self with independent consciousness. It could exist independently and also cooperate with each other. Therefore, if the external avatars attacked, it would be difficult to find the original body. However, the divine eye passed down by Emperor Yu the Great could easily see the original body behind the external avatars. It was extraordinary and powerful. After Yu Jingtian activated his divine eye, he didn't see any golden core or core embryo in Jiang Tian's Dantian. He believed that Jiang Tian was a foundation establishment cultivator. I'm a piece of trash. Jiang Tian chuckled. But to me, you're the ant. You don't have the right to fight with me. Even if your ancestor came back to life, he might not be a match for me. Good, good, good. Ant. Today, I'll show you who's the ant. Yu Jingtian laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He couldn't control his anger anymore. He flew into the air and controlled the bronze cauldron to approach Jiang Tian. Chapter 1238. Yu Jingtian, why don't you lead the Pre-Qin sects to surrender? Suddenly, a figure in a red Taoist robe dashed over and stood between the two. You are no match for Jiang Taichu, and we are in dire need of manpower right now. I believe that if you come to your senses, apologize sincerely, and pledge your loyalty to him, with the generosity of the leader of the Taichu sect, he will definitely spare your lives. It was Yi Karen who had arrived in time to mediate the situation. She had seen the horrors of the lower dimension. She hoped that everyone would unite around Jiang Tian. Only then would they have a chance to survive. Yi Karen, are you out of your mind? You want him to give me a chance to live? Yu Jingtian put away the cauldron and sneered. Yi Karen, are you blind? Don't you know that the Pre-Qin sects have already wiped out all 4 of Kang Taichu's dojos? Yu Fenghua mocked. He is just a level 3 foundation establishment cultivator from the Gu Kingdom. How dare the Kunlun sect carry his palanquin and play the drums for him? Shame on you. We've finally forced him out. We're finally going to succeed. Now, you want us to stop, you want us to submit, and you want us to apologize. Are you out of your mind? Yin Chaoge, Ji Mai, and Jiang Feibai snickered. Yi Karen shook her head in disappointment. The power structure of the Pre-Qin dynasty was far inferior to Jiang Tianjin's. It was like the difference between the clouds and the mud. The Pre-Qin sects only cared about fame and fortune, but Jiang Tian's only concern was for the benefit of the entire human race. Kang Taichu is telling the truth. Yi Karen held back her anger and said patiently. His power is not as simple as you think. If you insist on going your own way and underestimate his strength, it will be too late for regrets. Are you on Kang Taichu's side or the Kunlun sects? Suddenly, Yu Jingtian's eyes flickered as he asked. I am on Kang Taichu's side. What, do you still want to kill me? Yi Karen's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness as he said. Ji Mingchuan's face tightened. He quickly stepped forward and said flatteringly, Young Master Yu, please forgive Yi Karen for my sake. Don't worry, I know you like her. I won't kill her. Yu Jingtian nodded. Karen, step back. The Kunlun sect doesn't need to get involved in this mess. You will only get yourself killed if you follow Kang Taichu. Ji Mingchuan looked at Yi Karen and persuaded him with a smile. Traces of admiration could be seen in the depths of his eyes. Get lost. Yi Karen's pretty face was as cold as an ancient glacier. Her eyes were cold and she said without any hesitation. Who do you think you are? How dare you call the sect master's name? I'll settle the grudges between your Ji family and my Yi family sooner or later. You. What? Ji Mingchuan was so angry that his body trembled. He had been humiliated by Yi Karen in public. That's enough. Now is not the time to talk about this. Let's talk about something more important. Yu Jingtian waved his hand and asked him to step back. He looked at Jiang Tian and Yi Karen with disdain, then raised his hand and sneered. Yi Karen, you can't do anything alone. So what if you support Kang Taichu? Don't you see how many people support me? The royal family of the Ming dynasty and the Huangjue temple support the Pre-Qin dynasty. Boom. Boom. An old monk slowly rose into the sky like a dragon. He brought with him a huge pressure and flew over. Greetings, ancestral patriarch. The patriarch's cultivation seems to have improved. Zhu Shaoqian knelt on the ground and trembled with excitement. Then, beams of light flashed across the sky. Li Guangyu, the head of the Li family of the Tang dynasty, and Zhu Guanlan of the Zhu family of the Ming dynasty had all arrived. Even the hidden descendants of the great Han dynasty came out with a snake-slaying sword. The descendants of the great Song dynasty, the Zhao clan, also showed up. These people were the top overlords in the reclusive royalty alliance. They were even more powerful than the original reclusive royalty alliance, which showed how powerful the pre-Qin dynasty was. Reclusive royalty alliance supports the pre-Qin dynasty. Kang Te-chu, you're just a commoner. How dare you lead the myth alliance and command the heroes of Huaxia? Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, why don't you submit to the pre-Qin sects? That's the only way you can survive. After all, you're not their match. As long as you submit, this old man will put in a good word for you. After they arrived, they stood on the side of the pre-Qin dynasty without hesitation. Some looked at Jiang Tian and ordered him directly. Some reprimanded him harshly. Some tried to persuade Jiang Tian to change his mind. Even the older generation of the reclusive royalty alliance supported the pre-Qin dynasty. As for the younger generation, Zhu Shaoqian, Li Guangkou, and the others, they were more confident and reprimanded Jiang Tian. There are several existences beyond the heaven immortal realm. How can Kang Te-chu defeat them? The old monk of Huangjue Temple seems to have reached the false core stage. That's amazing. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even an ant can bite an elephant to death. Now, there are already 6 false core stage cultivators and countless heaven immortals, earth immortals, and human immortals. Kang Te-chu is like iron, how many nails can he crush? Yeah. If the reclusive royalty alliance didn't rebel, Kang Te-chu might have a 50% chance of winning. But now. Tisk. People were shocked to find that these big shots were all beyond the heaven immortal realm and had reached the middle stage of foundation establishment. For a moment, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Kang Te-chu was bound to lose. If he didn't surrender, only death would await him. Shameless. Ying Laozu was so angry that his hair stood on end and his body trembled. He stepped forward and shouted angrily, "The pre-Qin dynasty taught you the method to break the immortal trap formation. You betrayed us and tore up the agreement with the sect master of the Taichu's sect on Qingsang Peak in the Lansang River. What's the difference between you and a beast if you don't keep your words? Ying Laozu, we're doing this for justice. You're the one who's using your power to avenge private grudges. You're distorting the truth." Yi Yuhui took a step forward and coldly snorted as he unreasonably argued. "What did you say? I'm distorting the truth." Ying Laozu frowned and asked. "Don't play dumb." Yi Yuhui's appearance was extremely beautiful, her tender voice was like the chirping of an oriole, but her mouth was sharp, and her words were like swords. Ying Su asked for the method to break the immortal trap formation from the Yu family of the pre-Qin dynasty. Young Master Yu thought that he was a bad person and refused. When he saw that we all got such a cultivation method, he was jealous and held a grudge. He attacked us in the base of the Guardians Alliance in Huaxia to vent his anger. After severely injuring dozens of powerful cultivators, he fled and betrayed the Guardians Alliance in Huaxia. Since then, the Yu clan has ordered that the famous pre-Qin clans are not allowed to reveal the method to the Ying clan. Therefore, you have been harboring hatred in your heart. Today, you ignored the big picture and helped the villain do evil by supporting Jiang Taichu. She flung her sleeves and said disdainfully, "You're Ying Laozu of the great Qin dynasty. How could you be so despicable? Don't you know shame? Don't you know that we're already being merciful by not hunting down Ying Su?" "Yes. That's true. If we hadn't shown mercy at that time, Ying Su would have died an unnatural death. But you don't know how to be grateful and bite the hand that feeds you." "What's the reason?" Ji Mingchuan, Li Guangkou, and Zhu Shaoqian all agreed. You're slandering me." "Nonsense." Ying Laozu was so angry that he couldn't stop trembling. Smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices and his eyes were about to spit fire. Originally, it was Ing Su who exposed the collusion between the Pre-Qin dynasty and the demon race. Ji Mingchuan was afraid that the matter would be exposed, so he led a group of royal family members to attack Ing Su. He was filled with righteous indignation, but considering that it was only a one-sided story and there was no evidence, he didn't announce it publicly. But he didn't expect that they would accuse him first. Ying Laozu couldn't stand it. He raised his hand and was about to kill. Ying Laozu, are you going to attack a junior? Ji Mingchuan took a step forward and said disdainfully, what kind of senior are you? How can you act like an elder? Ying Laozu, if you dare to attack Yi Yuhui, I'll kill you first. Yu Jingtian looked at Yi Yuhui with admiration and then said to Ying Laozu coldly with killing intent. Ying Laozu's vision turned black and he almost fainted. He then smiled sadly and said, originally, I still had a glimmer of hope for the reclusive royalty of the Pre-Qin dynasty. Today, I finally understand that all of you are already rotten and depraved to the extreme, rotting from the roots. What era is it now? You're still dreaming of restoration. It seems that only Kang Tae-chu can save the watering world. He realized that it was useless to say anything now. He took a step back and didn't say anything. His killing intent surged as he waited for the battle to break out. Yi Karen looked at Ji Mingchuan, Yi Yuhui, and the others and sneered, you'll regret it if you turn black into white and become enemies with Kang Tae-chu. Lady Wu also stepped forward and said coldly, don't you know whether you're doing this for justice or for your own interests? After being humiliated by Yi Karen, Ji Mingchuan's love for Yi Karen turned into hatred and he said angrily, Yi Karen, you're the ones who don't know what's good for you. You can't see that the torrent of history can't be stopped. Yi Karen, you'll regret it if you join forces with Kang Tae-chu. You don't know the strength and deep foundation of the Pre-Qin dynasty. Yi Yuhui sneered. Forget it, forget it. Good words can't persuade those who deserve to die. We've said all the good words, but they still don't repent. Then let them die. Yi Karen and Lady Wu looked at each other angrily. They knew that it was useless to say anything more, so they sneered and stopped talking. Kang Tae-chu, you've seen how many people are on my side now. Yu Jingtian looked at the experts around him and sneered proudly, this is the will of the people. This is the will of the people. This is the will of the people. Those who are just will get more support, while those who are unjust will get little support. Are you still going to stubbornly resist until the end? Do you really want to fight to the death with us? He, in the entire world, which force is worthy of me, Jiang Taichu, fighting to the death? Jiang Tian looked coldly at them and let them do whatever they wanted. Then, he sneered disdainfully, you've overestimated your strength. Do you think you can defeat me with a few mid-stage foundation establishment cultivators? Dream on. Now, kneel down and hand over the spirit chi recovery seed. Then, I'll only destroy your cultivation and spare your life. Stubborn. I'll send you on your way. Yu Jingtian, the descendant of the Pre-Qin dynasty and the heir of the Yu family, was so angry that he laughed. He raised his hand and the bronze cauldron came crashing down on Jiang Tian like a small mountain. Boom! The ancient bronze cauldron emitted thousands of rays of light and thousands of auspicious colors. Vast waves of dermic powers hung down like silk ribbons. Every single wave of dermic powers could crush a mountain peak and split open the void, enveloping an area of 10 miles in radius. The aura was extremely powerful. Shenlong, you can attack now. Jiang Tian said coldly. Chapter 1239. You're asking your servant to fight? Kang Tae-chu, do you think I can't even defeat this old man who's barely at the foundation establishment level? Yu Jingtian's face was full of disdain. He was almost angered to death by Jiang Tian. This was a great humiliation. The ancestral patriarch of the true dragon sect was hunched over. His eyes were cloudy and his clothes were tattered. He was panting heavily as if he was about to die. Kang Tae-chu is looking down on us. Kang Tae-chu is obviously scared. He doesn't dare to fight, So he's asking an old servant to be his cannon fodder. Everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe what they were seeing. On one side was Yu Jingtian, who cultivated the orthodox cultivation methods of the Xian men and had inherited the true teachings of the Qi cultivators of the pre-Qin dynasty. On the other side was an old man with wrinkles all over his face, who looked like he was about to collapse at any moment. They wondered if Jiang Tian had lost his mind. Why did he ask the two of them to fight? Were they really on the same level? Yes. He's enough to kill you. Jiang Tian nodded. Good, good, good. Kang Te-chu, how dare you look down on me? Then this young master will kill this old thing, and then kill you. Suppress him. Yu Jingtian roared furiously. His hair was disheveled. He stepped forward and made a series of hand seals. The bronze cauldron expanded again. Its vast Dharma power was pushed to the extreme. It was so powerful that it could crush mountains and shatter the earth. Master, I've received your order. At this moment, Ancestor Azure Dragon, who originally had a hunched back, turbid eyes, and slow movements like an old man, suddenly straightened his back. Suddenly. It was as if a primordial beast had been awakened and a peerless heavenly sword had been unsheathed. The world was filled with violence, brutality, cruelty, and killing intent. Boom! At this moment, the world changed color. The sun and the moon were reversed. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon's energy surged from the early stage of the Foundation establishment level to the Golden Core level and then to the Nascent Soul level. It didn't seem like it was going to stop anytime soon. His Dantian rumbled, and a huge Jiao Dragon Dharma form slithered out. It had a dragon head and a human body, and it was mighty and mighty. It stood on the ground and was 1,000 meters tall, even taller than the surrounding mountains. What is this? Yu Jingtian's face turned pale. It was too late for him to retreat. Little worm, die. The Jiao Dragon celestial body stepped out and trampled Yu Jingtian and the ancient bronze cauldron under its feet. The Flood Dragon Dharma form and the True Dragon Patriarch spoke at the same time. Their voices were like thunder, shattering the clouds in the sky. In this ancestor's eyes, you're nothing more than an ant and a speck of dust. How dare you act rashly in front of my master? The whole place was dead silent. Everyone was flabbergasted, looking at this scene in disbelief. At this moment, everyone was suppressed by the True Dragon Patriarch's energy. They trembled and felt like their bones were about to shatter. What is this? Yin Chaoge was so frightened that his body trembled. He felt like he was being crushed by thousands of mountains, or rather, a vast continent. His muscles were spasming and his bones were cracking as if they were about to fall apart. His body was restrained by the Jiao Dragon's energy, but he couldn't even move his little finger. Clang! Ah! Ah! Ji Mai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His hands were trembling so much that his axe fell to the ground and hit his feet. He gritted his teeth in pain. What a terrifying energy! What a powerful Dharma form! Jiang Feibai activated the apricot yellow flag and a yellow light enveloped his body. He stumbled backward and sat on the ground. He moved backward on all fours as if he had seen a demon. Our young master couldn't even withstand one attack. How could this be? Clatter, 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 clatter. Yu Fenghua's teeth fiercely clattered against each other. Her beautiful face was as white as paper, and cold sweat rolled down her cheeks. How powerful was the True Dragon Patriarch? He was the dominator of the Dragon Gate world 1,000 years ago. He had a 6th grade golden core when he formed the core and had the Jiao Dragon bloodline. When he reached the nascent soul level, his Jiao Dragon bloodline had reached the phenomenal success level. His Dharma form was so powerful that it could destroy cities and countries. An expert like him, even if placed in the ruins of immortality, would be a tyrant, an unparalleled giant. Besides, he had been following Jiang Tian ever since he came out of the Thunder Lock. Jiang Tian was so experienced that he could easily point out the key points. As for ancestral patriarch True Dragon, he had lived for thousands of years and was very experienced. He was immediately enlightened and broke through the obstacles and shackles. His cultivation improved 1,000 times in a day. At that moment, he was only one step away from the real nascent soul level. As for Yu Jingtian, what was he? One had to know that when planet destruction had descended and the twilight of the gods had arrived, the two stars of the south gate of the ruins of immortality had set up the immortal trap array. The immortal trap array had been suppressing the earth while planet destruction had been devouring spirit chi in the depths of the earth. Now, Earth had become a dead planet in a cage. The age of doom had arrived and cultivators were dying. A single thread couldn't be made into a line and a single tree couldn't become a forest. The prosperity of a civilization couldn't be achieved by a few elites and families. Instead, it required hundreds of millions of people to work together, support each other, and compete actively. Only then would it be possible. The cultivation arts and divine powers left by Yu the Great were indeed good. However, the problem was that after entering the Age of Chaos, the Yu family's martial arts were never passed down to outsiders. They were even passed down to males and not females. They only passed down the martial arts to a single person, and only a few people were able to practice it. If he kept it to himself, then he would not be able to supplement, perfect, or improve the cultivation technique. Instead, the cultivation technique would become worse and worse, more and more incomplete. So, the divine powers of the Yu family and the other famous families in the Qin dynasty couldn't be compared with those in the ruins of deity or the multidimensional worlds. Besides, he was only a false core cultivator. Even if he could use the full power of his cultivation arts, how could he compare with a nascent soul cultivator? Ah! Let me go! Yu Jingtian roared and screamed under the dragon's feet. He couldn't accept the fact that he had lost. The true dragon patriarch's stomp was too powerful. It was as heavy as a mountain. It stomped him 10 meters into the ground. His bones were broken and his tendons were broken. He was bleeding profusely. He looked like a bloody, twisted rag. But he had a false core cultivator to provide him with blood chi. So, he wouldn't die immediately. Seeing Yu Jingtian in such a miserable state, everyone looked at the true dragon grandmaster and the huge Jiao dragon Dharma idol, as well as Jiang Tian behind him. Yes, compared to the true dragon patriarch, they were more afraid of Jiang Tian. If the true dragon patriarch was so powerful, and yet he was willing to be Jiang Tian's servant, then Jiang Tian's strength was unfathomable. Unfathomable. Yu Jingtian was in a sorry state. Although he was afraid, he was more angry and unwilling to admit defeat. He thought of himself as the descendant of Yu the Great. Yu the Great was the origin of Hua Xia's civilization, the founder of the Great Xia. As his descendant, what kind of glory, what kind of high and lofty position was that? So, he looked down on Jiang Tian. That was why he thought that Jiang Tian was just a commoner. He didn't have the right to command the heroes and revive the spiritual energy. So, he came here today with the determination to win. He wanted to use Jiang Tian as a stepping stone to his position in front of billions of people around the world. He wanted to stomp Jiang Tian into the dust to announce the return of the Great Xia and restore the glory of the Great Xia. But he didn't expect that he couldn't even defeat an old servant of Jiang Tian. It was like falling from heaven to hell. He couldn't accept this cruel reality. He roared angrily. Kang Te-chu, how dare you humiliate me like this? Let me go. Bow your head and apologize to me. Do you know that there are Jindan stage cultivators in my family? People like you don't have enough strength. You always like to brag about your family background. It's really despicable. Jiang Tian shook his head in disappointment and mocked. Don't you know that a real man has to rely on himself? Relying on the heavens, the earth, your father, and your ancestors is not a real man. But what about you? You bully others with your power. You are full of petty schemes. You don't care about the big picture and you distort the truth. If your ancestors knew that you were like this, they would be so angry that they would crawl out of their graves. But you don't have the techniques and magical equipment passed down by your ancestors. You don't have the protection of your family. What are you? Jiang Tian sneered and mocked. Now that the world is changing, I, Kang Te-chu, am also in need of people. If you were a talent, I might be willing to take you as my subordinate. But unfortunately, you are too weak to be my subordinate. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with coldness. He said indifferently, kill him. How dare you? Yu Fenghua screamed. Her eyes were red. Yu Jingtian was her brother, the peerless genius of the younger generation of the Yu clan. He had the potential to inherit the position of the clan master in the future. Kang Te-chu, calm down. If you let Yu Jingtian go now, we might still have a chance to make peace. Jiang Feibai's attitude changed. He guided Jiang Tian patiently, trying to break down Jiang Tian's killing intent. Yes, we can do as you wish. We can form a mythological alliance and work together to revive the spiritual qi. We will be in charge of Hua Xia and you will be in charge of overseas. Ji Mai also gave in. After all, Yu Jingtian's life was in the hands of others. Yin Chaoga threatened, don't worry. You killed Yu Jingtian. You are an enemy of the pre-Qin clans. Aren't you afraid of our revenge? Do you really think that I need your help and support to form a mythological alliance? A trace of mockery appeared on Jiang Tian's face. He smiled coldly and said, who can stop me from recovering my spiritual energy alone? I am just being kind. I want to leave some seeds for the pre-Qin Qi practitioners. After all, I will leave in the future. But now, you have only yourself to blame. Why should I be merciful? Revenge? How are you going to take revenge on me? Just a few fake Dan weaklings like you? Are you kidding me? Kill him. Yes, master. Patriarch True Dragon sneered and reached out his hand. The Jiao Dragon grabbed Yu Jingtian and the bronze cauldron in its hand and stuffed them into its mouth without hesitation. It began to chew and devour. Blood spurted out from the corner of its mouth. Blood, flesh, and broken bones fell from the sky. Even the core embryo and divine soul were devoured. Then, the ancestor withdrew his Dharma idol and bent his back again. He lowered his eyes and stood behind Jiang Tian obediently with his hands behind his back, resuming the image of an old servant. The entire place was silent. The hundreds of thousands of people, including the pre-Qin clans and the traitorous reclusive royalty, did not dare to speak. Chapter 1240. Kang Te-chu had never shown up in public before. Once he showed up, he was merciless and ruthless. He ordered his old servant to eat the leader of the younger generation like a bug. Meanwhile, Ji Mai, Yin Chaoga, Jiang Feibai, and Yu Fenghua were all dumbfounded. Their faces paled and they could not believe what they had just seen. Behind the many famous sets, there were hundreds of people. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. They trembled and retreated as if they had seen a demon. Jiang Tian actually dared to kill. Moreover, his method of killing was so cruel. He directly ate him. As for the onlookers, all of their hair stood on end. Shi Meiwan was so scared that she had a heart attack. She fell to the ground and frothed at the mouth. Then, she convulsed and died. The 1,000-meter-tall Dharma power with the head of a human and the body of a dragon was already so terrifying that it almost made her heart explode. Even the iconic Oriental Pearl Tower in Zhonghai was less than 500 meters tall. Even the tallest building in the world, the King of Saudi Arabia, was only 107 meters tall. The Dharma power of the true dragon ancestral patriarch was even scarier than the monster Tesla in the movies. More importantly, it was not a movie special effect. It was a living creature that would cause phobia. When it started eating people, it was even more terrifying. The psychological impact was unimaginable. Who could withstand it? As for those who had not fainted, they were completely dumbfounded. The ending was too shocking. Originally, most of them thought that in terms of background and strength, the pre-Qin dynasty's famous clans were superior to Jiang Tian. A small portion of them thought that since Jiang Tian was famous and had a glorious battle record, Yu Jingtian and Jiang Tian should be on par with each other. However, no one had expected that Jiang Tian did not even make a move. One of his old servants used his Dharma power to crush Yu Jingtian and eat him alive. At that moment, not only were the hundreds of thousands of people at the scene trembling in fear, but also in shock. In fact, the scene had been broadcasted to every corner of the world. It made billions of people tremble in fear. Many children's parents and teachers were ordered not to watch, so as not to leave a serious psychological shadow. Humph, after all, Kang Tae-chu is a meticulous person. When it comes to the future and fate of Earth, he has maintained his respect for the various forces. He hopes that everyone can unite and work together to plant the eternal foundation for Earth. Chao Shixiang shook his head and sneered. But some people think that his respect and tolerance are easy to bully. What I don't know is that if Kang Tae-chu were to make a move, would you even have the slightest chance to resist? In the depths of the Kunlun sect, Li Wuji, who was watching this through the video, shook his head and chuckled mockingly. These famous pre-Qin sects are really arrogant and don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They think that they have a chance to challenge Demon King Jiang just because they are from the orthodox Xianmen sect. How could I have forgotten that this peerless ferocious figure swept through the 3 dimensions and was invincible? How could he be easily bullied? Ever since the annihilation of the Holy See and the Brahman, Master has not attacked any forces on Earth in the past 2 years. Many people have forgotten about him or thought that he was past his prime. Shen Mange, who was recuperating in Shenong School, also watched this shocking scene through the live broadcast. She shook her head and chuckled. But in fact, Kang Tae-chu is still Kang Tae-chu. He is still the most powerful man on Earth. He is still as domineering and powerful as ever. He is still an existence that no one dares to provoke. Invincible. At this moment, the disciples of Tianqing School all over the country and the world were elated and exhilarated. My cousin is so powerful. I'm afraid that the crisis of the Zhang family will be resolved in minutes. Far away in Yanjing, Zhang Yilin, who was watching my live broadcast at the headquarters, was very excited. This time, she was responsible for the live broadcast of this competition and the gift gambling. She had made a lot of money watching my live broadcast. Moreover, she had bet all her assets on the gambling. This time, her assets would be multiplied several times. Next to her, Zhang Jinghua said proudly. Alas, my grandson is so amazing. So what if he is a descendant of a famous pre-Qin family? He is still so weak. Fortunately, we persevered until the end, otherwise. In the valley of Mount Amei. Yi Karen glanced at the crowd and sneered, Ji Mingchuan, Zhu Shaoqin, Li Kuangkou, Yi Yuhui, do you think that I will regret it? Do you think that I am blind? Lady Wu also sneered and said disdainfully, this is what you call an orthodox Xianmen? This is what you call a famous pre-Qin family? Unshakable and powerful. What happened in the end? Faced with this question, Ji Mingchuan and the others couldn't say a word. They were already scared out of their wits and were dumbfounded. Kang Tae-chu, how dare you kill a descendant of the Yu family? Yu Fenghua's pretty face was distorted and looked somewhat ferocious. Her eyes were as cold as knives and she shouted angrily, I swear that you will not walk out of this valley today. My Yu family will not rest until you are dead. The old monk of Huangjue Temple shook his head with a bitter smile and said regretfully, Benefactor Grand Primordium's killing intent is too strong. It was a conflict of interest earlier, but now it is a vendetta of life and death. Jiang Tian, who was the center of attention, looked at Yu Fenghua in disdain. You can't even defeat my disciple. What right do you have to fight me to the death? If you want revenge, I'm right here. Go ahead. Yu Fenghua was so frightened that her face turned pale. She retreated and trembled all over. Although she hated Jiang Tian, she didn't dare to attack him. After all, the true dragon patriarch behind Jiang Tian was too terrifying. I naturally have my reasons for reviving spirit chi. I've already said that whoever stops me will die. Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered with her. He sneered with a calm expression. You are really ignorant. The ruins of immortality is no longer the territory of Shang Emperor Zhongli. Shang Emperor and Ao Emperor have become history, a thing of the past. The Ruins Emperor is now in charge, and the Ruins Emperor is the invader of the Southern Gate Twin Stars. In short, the Ruins of Immortality is not our ally, not our ancient race, but our enemy. 10,000 years ago, the Ruins Emperor took over the deity ground and turned it into ruins. So far, the Ruins Emperor has taken over many dimensional worlds, including the Star World. He is only a short distance away from Earth and could invade at any time. My old servant is the ruler of the Dragon Gate world. But the Dragon Gate world is only a level 3 dimensional world. There's still a huge gap between it and the Ruins of Immortality and the level 2 dimensional world. Do you think the technology and civilization on Earth can resist the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality? If it weren't for the revival of spirit chi, would we have a chance of survival? Once that was said, everyone went silent. Everyone couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. What he said was very different from what the famous sects of the Qin dynasty had said. You're trying to mislead people with your lies. What evidence do you have? Yu Fenghua was not convinced at all and snorted. You don't believe me? But I can show you what it's like when the Dragon Gate world is invaded. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon smiled bitterly and took out a disc-shaped Dharma artifact. This is a scene from 10,000 years ago. I didn't experience it myself. This Dharma plate was passed down from an overlord of the Flood Dragon race, Longbeard. When I was born, the Dragon Gate world had already been occupied for thousands of years and had entered a period of stable rule. I just didn't want to be the Ruins Emperor's slave, so I followed Kang Te-Chu. He made a hand seal. The disc-shaped Dharma artifact immediately shone and shot into the sky. Suddenly, images formed by light and shadow formed in the void. They were as lifelike as a 3D movie with naked eyes, and every detail could be seen. Kill. The sounds of battle, explosions, screams, and whistles were extremely complex and shook the heavens and the earth. In the Dragon Gate world, altar-like teleportation arrays were activated. Countless experts from the Ruins of Immortality rushed out at a speed faster than the speed of sound. They streaked across the sky and attacked madly. They were so powerful that every move they made could destroy the world. Their attacks were comparable to nuclear weapons, shattering mountains and turning giant cities into dust. The flames of war continued, smoke billowed, and blood flowed. The land within 10,000 miles was scorched, and broken bones were piled up like mountains. The cultivators who resisted fell to the ground like rain. The disc-shaped Dharma artifact in Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon's hand had complicated and ancient Tao patterns. It was a kind of Dharma plate that could imprint images into the Dharma artifact. It was even more realistic than a holographic projection. Then, the image changed. It was a cruel, bloody, and inhumane massacre. In the Dragon Gate world, thousands of flood dragons were slaughtered by the overlords of the Ruins of Immortality. They were skinned, burned, and cut into pieces. On the ground, blood flowed like rivers. The corpses of the flood dragons were piled up like mountains. Palm-sized flies and mosquitoes licked the blood. Beasts with cold eyes ate the flesh of the corpses as if there was no one around. There were children standing among the corpses, shaking their mothers' corpses and crying helplessly. Male warriors in armor, with broken limbs and guts, crawled on the ground, moaning in pain and despair. Old people knelt on the ground, begging for mercy pitifully. Those who don't submit to the Southern Gate Twin Stars and His Majesty, the Ruins Emperor, will be killed without mercy. Kill. Kill. The flood dragons are the remnants of the Shang Emperor and the descendants of the Ao Emperor. We must eliminate them completely. The Ruins Emperor has decreed that the Great Ruins of Immortality's Co-Prosperity Army will occupy all the dimensions and besiege Earth. We will wait for Star Destroyer to appear and Spirit Chi to recover. We will conquer, enslave, and take everything. We will make Earth the most beautiful home of the ruins of immortality, our new home. However, the overlords of the ruins of immortality were still laughing like demons. They attacked mercilessly, killing thousands with a single palm strike. Chapter 1241. Finally, the chaotic scenes of battles and massacres disappeared. An old man with a long beard and towering horns on his head sat cross-legged in the dim cave. He was covered in wounds and dripping with blood. He was on the verge of death. He said weakly, "I am Longbeard, the commander of the Sky Wolf Battalion of the Dragon Gate World's Cultivator Army in the third-class dimension during Ao Huang's era. I represent the Dragon Gate World to warn all the other dimensions that the deity ground has changed. Ao Huang has been killed, and the Ruins Emperor is in power. At this moment, the Ruins Emperor's invasion army has reached the Dragon Gate World. This place has been lost." He used all his strength to shout. All interstellar wanderers in the fourth-class dimensions under the Dragon Gate, such as Heavenly Star, Chia, Kanglin, and all the other dimensions, remember this. The Southern Gate twin stars are not friends. The ruins of immortality is not your home. Immediately cut off the ancient astral path, destroy all teleportation arrays, stop the world's propulsion system, close the sealed spatial barrier. Do not advance. Do not advance. He had not finished his sentence. Suddenly, a sharp cold light flashed, and blood spurted out like a fountain. He was split into two and fell to the ground. The scene gradually faded into nothingness. There was dead silence. Patriarch True Dragon put away the imprint disc array and smiled bitterly with a sorrowful expression. Unfortunately, his imprint disc array did not succeed in spreading. He was killed by the ruins of immortality experts. Therefore, the fourth-class dimensions closest to Earth have been occupied by the Ruins Emperor. There were hundreds of millions of flood dragons in the Dragon Gate world. After that battle, there were only a few million left. If not for the Ruins Emperor needing to rebuild the Dragon Gate, I think he would not have left those few million people behind. His eyes were filled with tears as he shouted loudly. If you do not want Earth to be occupied like the Dragon Gate, if you do not want your children's parents to be slaughtered, your women to be defiled, and your men to be slaves, then give up all your fantasies. Awaken your spirit chi and pick up your weapons to fight. The Ruins Emperor is not a good person. The ruins of immortality is not heaven or home. So, we have been bewitched. The crowd was dead silent. After a long time, many people gradually came to a realization. It turned out that it was not Jiang Tian who provoked the stellar sky domain, which led to the invasion of the dimensions. The Ruins Emperor's strategy of occupying Earth had been going on for 10,000 years. The flames of war had reached their doorstep. Behind us is our home. We have nowhere to go. Now, I'm going to revive the spirit chi. Does anyone have any objections? Jiang Tian asked coldly. There was dead silence. Even the famous pre-Qin sects and the old monk of Huangjue Temple were dumbfounded and speechless. At this time, all the people around the world who were paying attention to this event took out their phones and solemnly cast their sacred votes in the poll. I support the recovery of spiritual power. The true dragon patriarch was only a powerhouse from a third-level world, but he still had the power to destroy cities and mountains. If the experts from the ruins of immortality were to attack, what a tragic scene it would be. Earth would probably be completely occupied in a few days or even a few hours. The revival of spiritual energy, the great changes in the world, and the breeding of demonic beasts was indeed very terrifying. It was an unprecedented challenge for mankind. But at least there was still a chance of survival. That was still better than being invaded and occupied by the experts of the ruins of immortality, enslaving all the humans in the world and exterminating them. The number of supporters continued to rise. In the end, almost 6 billion people all over the world supported Jiang Tian's recovery of spiritual energy. Reclusive royalty and pre-Qin sects even secretly took out their phones and pressed the button to support. However, Yin Chaogo was still a bit unconvinced. He didn't discuss whether he should recover spiritual energy or not. He sneered and said, "That's right. This senior is indeed powerful, but the Tianqing school might not be as powerful as the preaching sections. For example, your two disciples might not be as powerful as me. Besides, our seniors are even more terrifying. You can't put the fate of mankind in the hands of Kang Taechu just because he defeated Yu Jingtian, right? Who knows what you'll do during the recovery of spiritual energy? You know, absolute power breeds absolute corruption." "Oh. Looks like you support the recovery of spiritual energy, but you don't want me to be the leader of the Mythos Alliance." Jiang Tian turned around and looked at him, a bit surprised. "That's right." Yin Chaoge stepped forward with an arrogant look in his eyes. "Very well, let me see what you're capable of." Situ Shao carried a long sword on his back and took a step forward, his gaze cold. "You asked him to do it?" Yin Chaoge questioned. "That's right." Jiang Tian said calmly. "If any of you can defeat any of my disciples today, you'll be the leader of the Mythos Alliance. Senior Taichu, this is a serious matter. It's better to be careful." Chao Jianjia was startled and stepped forward to persuade him. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Even Chao Shixiang's face became serious. Jiang Tian and the true dragon ancestral patriarch might be powerful, but how could they guarantee that every one of their disciples would be stronger than the descendants of the preaching sects? Wasn't this a little too careless? After all, they were from the Orthodox Qi Refinement sect, the Orthodox Qi Refinement sect. That was the origin of all cultivation techniques in Huaxia. All the cultivation techniques in the world originated from the pre-Qin dynasty. Situ Shao was from Qingcheng, but how could the Qingcheng flying sword compare to the cultivation techniques of the pre-Qin dynasty? Taichu controls the three realms and is the dominator of the three realms. You have to keep your word. How can you go back on your words? Yu Fenghua was afraid that Jiang Tian would go back on his word. "I won't go back on my word. Because you can't win." Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unhurried as he spoke slowly. "Very well. Situ Shao, the founder of the Hong sect and the #1 swordsman in the late Qing dynasty, may be very powerful in your eyes, but in my eyes, he is just as so-so. He is barely worthy of me using 30% of my strength." Yin Chaoge said disdainfully. The true dragon ancestral patriarch was powerful and had hidden his power well, but he came from another dimension, so it was normal that they had underestimated him. However, the rest of Jiang Tian's subordinates, including Huang Linger, were only at the false core level and had almost been killed by them. Besides, they had held back their strength to force Jiang Tian to come out. And Situ Zhao's power was even lower. Yin Chaoge thought to himself. If he disregarded everything and unleashed his full strength, relying on the cultivation method passed down from the investiture of the gods era, even if Situ Shao was also a false core cultivator, he wouldn't be afraid. However, Yin Chaoge knew that even an eagle would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. Even though he didn't care about Situ Shao, he didn't show any mercy. Deity Trap Array, the blessing of the ancient entities, come. Yin Chaoge's eyes shone with a strange light as he performed the dipper steps, muttered some words, and made a spell. The golden dragon scissors turned into 2 dragons and whizzed out. The violent energy covered an area of a few kilometers and intertwined with each other. The energy was several times stronger than before. Yin Chaoge believed that his full-strength attack could crush a mountain and a warship. Break! When Situ Shao unsheathed his sword, everyone felt that the temperature in a 10-mile radius had dropped by more than 10 degrees. It seemed to have turned from a hot summer to a cold winter. Countless ice crystals and snowflakes were formed where the sword was thrust out. What was even more chilling was that after the sword was slashed out, it formed a stream of sword qi that resembled a rainbow. Yu Fenghua swore that she had never seen such a powerful sword qi in her life, not even in the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty. The scene of ice covering 10 miles and snow falling in June was just a drop in the ocean for the sword qi that had leaked out. Even more sword qi, sword intent, and cold killing intent were condensed within the sword qi that was like a waterfall. Arg! Yin Chaoge was alarmed and exclaimed. He wanted to use the dragons to kill the sword chi, but it was too late. The sword aura that looked like a rainbow pierced through the dragon at an unbelievable angle, shattering the defense light shields of the magical equipment and piercing through Yin Chaoga's abdomen, before it shot out of his back in a bloody dance and shattered a mountain hundreds of meters high behind him. Splash! Situ Xiao withdrew his sword chi. The sword aura was absorbed into the sword. It came like a thunderbolt and disappeared like a river. Damn it, I've been hit. Yin Chaoga paused and the corner of his eyes twitched in astonishment. He looked down. There was a bloody hole in his dantian. Through the hole, he could see everyone's shock and sympathy. Yin Chaoga was defeated with one slash. His fake core was broken, his dantian was severely damaged and he lost all his cultivation. What kind of sword technique was that? He broke the golden dragon scissors and cut Yin Chaoga's golden core. Everyone looked at Situ Xiao with awe-inspiring gazes. After Situ Xiao withdrew his sword, he was still standing with the sword on his back. He was wearing a blue robe and had a jade hairpin in his Taoist bun. He was as handsome as a scholar in the Qing dynasty. Arg! Why? Why did the Dharma power of the immortal trap array suddenly stop? Yin Chaoga screamed and vomited blood. He turned around and ran, wanting to go back to his family and heal his body. But after a few hundred meters, he fell to the ground and didn't move anymore. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Even the Lord of Yin Ruins, Yin Haojie, might not be able to resist such a terrifying slash. He's also a fake core cultivator. Everyone was shocked. Even Yu Fenghua was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. In fact, she was going crazy. How could Kang Teichu's subordinate be so powerful? Was the fake core cultivator's strength standard? Everyone was stunned by Situ Xiao's slash. Only Jiang Tian shook his head and chuckled. Yin Chaoga had thought that he was a pushover, but he had found the wrong person. This was an important place where the array was installed, so Situ Xiao didn't use his full strength. But in fact, his 5-element sky-seizing sword technique had reached the phenomenal success level and his cultivation level had reached the fake core level, which was on par with Yin Chaoga. In fact, in terms of the level of cultivation techniques, Situ Xiao's sword technique was even more profound than Patriarch True Dragon's. The 5-element sky-seizing sword technique was obtained from Sword Tomb Island and came from the outer sect elder of Heavenly Court sect, Immortal Nine Swords. According to Patriarch True Dragon and the others, Heavenly Court sect was a remnant faction of the ancient Heavenly Courts of the Shang and Ao emperors after they were defeated by the Ruins Emperor. Perhaps, Heavenly Court sect had already been suppressed by the Ruins Emperor and was even reduced to a slave. It was in a precarious state and could no longer be considered as a top faction. However, its cultivation technique came from the era of the Shang Emperor and was rather complete. Furthermore, as Jiang Tian's right-hand man and protector, Situ Xiao was highly valued by Jiang Tian. Later on, Jiang Tian had even modified the cultivation technique a few times to elevate it to the limit. It was already a quasi-emperor sword technique. Yin Chaoga's dermic formulation came from some mighty figure of the age of the gods, but it was already incomplete. Most importantly, Jiang Tian had just used a secret technique to sever the connection between the golden Wirm scissors and the immortal trap formation. The dermic powers of the immortal trap formation were not injected at all. With that, there was no way Yin Chaoga could defeat Situ Xiao. That sword technique is practically unparalleled. Are all of Kang Teichu's disciples this terrifying? At that moment, the expressions of countless pre-Qin sects changed and their hearts shuddered in fear. Chapter 1242. This sword technique is amazing. Even the true dragon patriarch had a whole new level of respect for Jiang Tian, his heart burning with passion. Old ancestor true dragon's experience far surpassed everyone else's. He could see that Situ Xiao's sword contained the laws of the Great Tao. It was definitely a deity transformation level cultivation method. Even if he obtained it in the ruins of immortality, he would be able to shock everyone and establish his own sect. But for the Lord to casually pass down such a cultivation method to a disciple, the Lord's foundation was simply too solid. Does anyone else want to challenge me? Jiang Tian chuckled. I'd like to see the peerless art of Tianqing school. A powerful cultivator from the Pre-Qin clan walked out aggressively, wanting to challenge Huang Ling, to redeem himself. After all, Huang Linger had just been through a series of battles and she seemed to be exhausted. However, he was still defeated by Huang Linger's Yiwud Dharma form and fell to the ground like a dead dog. In the end, one of Yu Jingtian's cousins, Yu Tiannan, a peak stage foundation establishment cultivator, stepped forward and yelled, "I want to challenge." He waved his hand and pointed at the black dog in Old Dragon's arms. "I want to challenge this black dog." Pfft. At this moment, the hundreds of thousands of people present and the hundreds of millions of people in front of their screens almost vomited blood. Even Yu Fenghua frowned and pulled a long face. What a disgrace to his grandmother's house. You're a disciple of the Pre-Qin dynasty. How dare you challenge a dog of Tianqing school? So what if you win? What are you laughing at? This dog is powerful. It's obviously a prehistoric beast. What's wrong with me challenging it? Even if I win, it still counts. Yu Tiannan shouted anxiously. No one was willing to give him a way out, so he had to find a way out. You can see that I, Lao He, am not ordinary. You have good eyes. Why don't I take you as my pet and you can serve me well? The black dog, who was dozing off, suddenly became excited. It jumped out of ancestral patriarch True Dragon's arms and landed on the ground. It's a beast. It can even talk. Could it be the legendary black dog spirit? Seeing this, Yu Tiannan was shocked. He couldn't believe it. His face turned pale and he took a few steps back. He had only said that the large black dog was a primordial mutant beast to give himself a way out. Who would have thought that his luck would be so good, and he had even hit the nail on the head. How unlucky. Tiannan. Are you still going to back off? Yu Fenghua frowned and shouted. You don't even have the guts to challenge one of Kang Teichu's dogs. If this were to spread out, the Yu family's face would be completely lost. How could they fight for the position of Alliance Master? He was too embarrassed to fight for it. Yu Tiannan calmed himself down. He knew that he had no choice but to fight this battle. Otherwise, he would definitely be chased out of the family. It's just a black dog spirit. What's the big deal? I don't even know how many leopard and tiger demons I've killed. After Yu Tiannan calmed himself down, his eyes filled with disdain. He was, after all, a powerful cultivator in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, surpassing the sky immortal realm. If he were to leave the mountain, he would be someone who could control a country or a sect. Since when could he be afraid of a black dog demon? Black dog, I'll kill you and make you into a hot pot. He pulled out an ancient bronze sword and furiously stabbed it toward the large black dog. Suddenly, the cold sword light illuminated the area within a mile. The sharp sword light shattered the ground and cut open huge rocks. Its power was extraordinary. You bastard, do you really think I'm a dog? However, the big black dog suddenly roared angrily and turned into a huge flood dragon about 100 feet long. Its mountain-like head was extremely terrifying. He opened his mouth and inhaled. Like a whale inhaling water, he sucked the sword light, sword chi, and Yu Tiannan into his mouth. Forget it, I'll just eat him. This guy is not obedient enough. I can't keep him as a human pet. The old dragon chewed loudly and swallowed Yu Tiannan whole with a big spicy strip. He praised, "You're the best. It's so delicious. It's so delicious with a spicy strip. I, the old dragon, am a particular dragon." This time, everyone was dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it and were completely speechless. They sadly realized that Kang Teichu's dog was a flood dragon and could crush a foundation establishment cultivator. Not many of them could beat it. How could they compare with it? Everyone was shocked. Many of the famous families in the Pre-Qin dynasty were completely speechless. They thought that Jiang Tian's words were harsh, but they didn't expect that Jiang Tian wasn't exaggerating at all. It was inferior to a dog. Although Ji Mai and the others could see that the big black dog looked like a dog, it was actually a flood dragon, or even a high-level dragon. However, many people still couldn't accept it. Yu Fenghua was so angry that his injury was triggered and he vomited blood. They came in high spirits and said that they would destroy Tianqing School and trample on Jiang Tian, but the ending was so cruel. They were completely disgraced. They were trampled on by Jiang Tian and rubbed their faces on the ground. They would be too embarrassed to go out and meet people in the future. Oh my God! That's amazing! Chao Jianjia widened her eyes and waved her fists excitedly. Chao Shixiang also looked a bit relieved. Jiang Tian was fierce and fierce. He could destroy countries and cities easily and he seemed to be reckless. In fact, he was extremely intelligent. He had thought things through carefully, and his plans were far-reaching. He had been recruiting and training talents and building his own force. Tianqing School's rear was very stable. At the moment, Tianqing School had many immortal state warriors, mortal deities, earth deities and sky immortals. There were even many fake core overlords. They were full of talents. Even if Jiang Tian wasn't there, the result would be the same as long as the ancestral patriarch of the true dragon fought. This is like a myth. He's a real dragon. The billions of people in front of the screen were completely shocked. We've underestimated him. Then, Ji Mai and the others smiled bitterly. They had completely lost hope. They thought that because of the deity trap array, Jiang Tian and the disciples of Tianqing School would be limited to the third level of the foundation establishment. They didn't expect that there were so many mid-stage and late-stage foundation establishment cultivators in Tianqing School. Even fake core cultivators were common. Even a dog was capable of crushing a foundation establishment cultivator. With such power, how could anyone survive? At the moment, although Jiang Tian didn't show his power, they also realized that Jiang Tian's strength was not simple, which made them even more afraid. At the moment, they were a bit regretful. In fact, when Jiang Tian first proposed the Myth Alliance, he wanted the overseas forces and monsters to submit to him. He also wanted to establish a joint conference with the Preqin family and the Kunlun sect to participate in the Spirit Qi recovery plan on an equal footing. But now, after the Preqin family made such a fuss, how could Jiang Tian let them be on an equal footing? Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd and said with a slightly mocking smile. Now, can you support my recovery of Spirit Qi? Are you willing to sign a contract with the Myth Alliance? Ji Mai and Jiang Feibai lowered their heads and didn't dare to speak. They didn't even dare to look at Jiang Tian. Their faces were pale and their eyes were filled with struggle. You want the Yu family to submit to you, Kang Taechu. You're dreaming. But Yu Fenghua's eyes were cold. He sneered and said fiercely, Jiang Taichu, originally, if you had stopped earlier and let my brother go, we could still have talked things over. However, you killed my brother. My Yu family will definitely not let this matter rest. We will fight you to the death, and fight you to the death. Do you think you have the strength to challenge me? Jiang Tian smiled and said, in this world, how many people are worthy of me, Kang Taechu? You're wrong. You're just ants that I can crush with a flick of my finger. Let me tell you, Kang Taechu. Yu Wenden, master of the Yu family, Yin Haojie, master of the Yin ruins, and Ji Shiqi, master of the Ji family, are all coming. They're on the way. Yu Fenghua's face was twisted and murderous. She said coldly, do you dare to wait for them to come? Do you dare to fight the leaders of the four major sects alone? Hearing this, Ji Mai was energized. He said in a low voice, we're just juniors. The real powerhouses are the leaders of the major sects. Kang Taechu, if you have the guts, wait for the leaders of the major sects to come. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. Call your parents if you can't beat them. Are you a 3-year-old kid? Jiang Tian sneered. He then smiled and said casually, you won't give up until the end. You guys won't give up until all hope is gone. Fine, fine. I'll give you a chance. Taichu's sect master, you can't do that. Ying Laozu, who had been silent for a long time, quickly stopped him. Chapter 1243. Obviously, even Ying Laozu was quite wary of the masters of the famous sections. In fact, the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty had crushed the reclusive royalty. They were not restricted by the immortal trap array at all. Their cultivation was unfathomable, and they might have reached the Golden Core realm. Especially when the four masters of the famous sects came together with countless pre-Qin Dharma treasures. That was even more terrifying. There's nothing I can't do. Jiang Tian waved his hand indifferently, then glanced at the disciples of the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty and said unhurriedly, I thought that the chaos of the famous sects of the pre-Qin dynasty was caused by ignorant juniors like you. It seems that you have backing. Even his father and the head of the family were participating. Then, fine, I'll eliminate them completely. I'll beat them until they kneel and beg for mercy. Benefactor Jiang, do you mean that you're going to do it yourself this time? The old monk of Huangjue Temple stepped forward and put his palms together. Yes. Jiang Tian stretched and said matter-of-factly, I've been in seclusion for too long. It's time for me to stretch my waist. Kang Te-chu, I admit that you're very strong. We've all underestimated you. The old monk of Huangjue Temple smiled bitterly. But if you think you're a match for the masters of the famous sects, then you're too arrogant. To be honest, he thought that Jiang Tian's strength was indeed at the foundation establishment realm, because his aura could not be faked. Moreover, it was Jiang Tian's disciple and old servant who attacked just now. It was very likely that Huang Linger had a special constitution to be able to break through the immortal trap array and reach such a cultivation level. But Jiang Tian's aura was that of an ordinary person, and he did not seem to have a special constitution. And the reason why the true dragon patriarch attacked for Jiang Tian was that he might not be a real servant. He might even be Jiang Tian's master. It was only to make Jiang Tian his representative and promote Jiang Tian that he was so pretentious. His speculation seemed to make sense. After all, the true dragon patriarch had wandered from the dimensional world, and Jiang Tian was a human from Earth. It would be easier for the various factions to accept that he was in charge of Earth. Yi Yuhui also thought of this point and said in a mocking tone, Kang Te-chu, it's only because your disciple's physique is special and your helper's strength is powerful that you can act like a tyrant. In terms of ability, how could he be a match for the descendants of the pre-Qin dynasty? The vastness of their divine abilities, the valiance of their strength, and the purity of their cultivation methods are something that you simply cannot compare to. Li Guangkou also snorted coldly in agreement. Do it myself? Hee, it's precisely because he's relying on women and helpers that he's so domineering. He can't break through the confinement of heaven and earth. How can he be a match for the master of the pre-Qin dynasty? Reclusive royalty shook their heads and sighed. There's no need to say anything more. Jiang Tian glanced at them and said with a cold smile, that's right. I, Kang Te-chu, just want you to see how weak the overlords you worship are in front of me. In an ancient mansion on the banks of the Sisui River, in the middle of a dimension array. The mansion was only a few hundred acres in size, but the spirit chi was as dense as clouds and mist. It was also very magical. When one walked to the edge, there was a layer of water curtain like a dimension barrier. One could see the flowing lights and distorted figures and scenery outside. It was a small grotto heaven. It was much smaller than the dimensional world, but the space was folded and ordinary people couldn't detect it. Kang Te-chu, you're so domineering that you even dare to kill the descendant of Emperor Yu. Today, I'll fight you to the death. Suddenly, a furious roar exploded like a clap of thunder, causing the entire space to almost shatter into pieces. The roar was so terrifying that it broke through the barrier of the grotto heaven and went straight to the sky. Suddenly, the entire northeastern part of Huaxia was deeply shaken. Hundreds of millions of people heard it. Tens of thousands of people nearby were even knocked unconscious. The entire Sisui County shook a few times as if there was an earthquake. What's going on? The descendant of Emperor Yu is going to fight with Kang Tae-chu. It must be. It's going on in the live broadcast room. Many people looked at their phones in shock and anticipation. Then, 9 giant cauldrons the size of small hills rushed out of the dimension array of the Yu family and rose thousands of meters into the sky. The giant bronze cauldrons with powerful auras flew in the direction of Mount Ame like dragons. Kang Tae-chu, I won't kill you today. I'll take your surname. An old man with an ancient appearance and a withered figure that seemed like an old farmer stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He was surrounded by 9 ancient cauldrons, and his eyes flickered with violent killing intent and monstrous hatred. Kill! Kill Kang Tae-chu and avenge our young master. Behind him, the overlords of the Yu family rose into the sky like helicopters and followed the old man. Crack! Crack! There was a sound like metal rubbing against each other. The ground shook and a giant black metal bear a few hundred meters tall broke out of the ground. There were flames under its feet and it carried the old man towards Mount Ame. Boom! In the Inshu ruins in Anyang, the land of the middle source. Rumble! An ancient bronze chariot rose into the air. A tall middle-aged man in a yellow robe with a golden whip in his hands sat on the chariot. He shouted angrily, "You're too weak." He shouted, "Kang Tae-chu, you've gone too far. How dare you kill my son? Do you think the Inshu ruins are easy to bully? Where's my army?" His voice shook 100 miles. Countless inscriptions in the ruins of deity were shattered and countless bells and cauldrons were ringing. With this roar, countless Preaching Chi cultivators leaped into the air from the surroundings of the ruins of immortality. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Kang Tae-chu is still not convinced. Today, we'll let him know the power of the Preaching dynasty. Then, in the West capital, the cave abodes of the Jiang family and the Ji family also emitted strange phenomena. Countless Preaching Chi refinement warriors rushed over. Tens of thousands of Preaching dynasty troops formed a military formation and flew across the sky. The war chariots rumbled and moved extremely fast like supersonic fighter jets, leaving behind milky white air turbulence in the air. The army was neat and orderly, with shining spears and armored horses. Cold light flickered, and an iron-blooded killing aura filled the sky. Their imposing manner was like a rainbow, and it could be said to be world-shaking. The Preaching dynasty army has reappeared. It's too shocking. That scene shocked everyone. The entire Huaxia was in an uproar. Hundreds of millions of people raised their heads to watch. They were dumbfounded and took photos and videos to upload. It only took them half an hour to cross 1,000 miles. They're almost as fast as a humanoid fighter jet. The Preaching dynasty army is here. This time, Kang Tae-chu is probably going to lose. Seeing the Preaching dynasty army flying over the valley, many people present were shocked. They were dumbfounded and shocked. When the Preaching dynasty's famous sects had strange phenomena in their respective clans and dojos, someone took photos and posted them on the internet. In half an hour, the armies of the 4 famous sects of the Preaching dynasty had arrived at the back of Mount Ame, where the spirit guiding array was located. They were so fast that they had broken the sound barrier. How could it not shock people? How could it not attract attention? In the sky above the valley, the flag was fluttering in the wind. The soldiers were densely packed. Tens of thousands of soldiers were arranged in neat military formations. They were like a torrent of steel that could destroy everything. Their murderous aura was like a rainbow, and their momentum was shocking. Upon closer inspection, the soldiers were clad in ancient armor, holding bronze halberds in their hands, long swords, quivers, and short sabers hanging from their waists, and bows on their backs. They stood upright and motionless, like statues from the Preaching dynasty. Their murderous aura and overlords filled the air, pushing out clouds. In an instant, the clouds within 100 miles disappeared and the sun shone brightly. Almost every one of these soldiers was a Chi refinement cultivator. Some of them were immortal state warriors and early-stage foundation establishment cultivators. If they weren't in hiding, any one of them could control a country or a sect in the mortal world and be on par with a general of a country. However, such overlords could only serve as soldiers of the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty. That was how powerful the famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty were. Within the military formation, there were also batches of extremely rare draconic horses and cheilants pulling numerous ancient bronze chariots and ancient formation chariots. The chariots were densely covered in Tao markings, and they seemed to be profound and obscure. They flickered with brilliance and emitted strong fluctuations of magic energy. If the onlookers weren't holding cameras, mobile phones, binoculars and wearing modern clothes, many people would have mistakenly thought that they had traveled back in time to the battlefield of the Pre-Qin dynasty and arrived in the ancient times. At this time, no one dared to speak or approach. They were so nervous that their bodies trembled. Even ordinary people could feel the chilling murderous aura. It was frightening. "Where is Kang Tae-chu?" When the voice was heard, there seemed to be a clap of thunder in the sky. The entire western part of Huaxia was shaken. Boom! Above Mount Ame, within a radius of 100 miles, dark clouds gathered. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. On the ground, the towering and steep mountain trembled violently. Countless trees on the mountain snapped, rocks exploded, and millstone-sized rocks rolled on the ground. Boom! Boom! Under everyone's shocked gaze, the sky trembled violently. Next to the white drake that pierced through the clouds, a giant metal bear that was hundreds of meters tall stepped through the void and walked out proudly. Chapter 1244. What the hell is that? Fuck, is that a Pre-Qin mecha? That's so interesting. Compared to a Pre-Qin mecha, Iron Man would be defeated anytime. Many people cried out in surprise when they saw this. They were in disbelief. This enormous bear was pitch black, and its entire body was forged from a strange black iron. Its figure was tall and heavy like a mountain, and its eyes were like gems that emitted rays of cold light. Its sharp claws were like cast from alloy, and its teeth were ghastly, causing it to be extremely terrifying. I heard that Yu the Great was mentally and physically exhausted when he tried to control the flood. The ancient deities gave him the ability to move mountains, cut open the earth, and dredge rivers. Even the famous Xianyuan mountain was torn apart by the giant bear. Is this the giant black iron bear? Hua Qingtian's face was pale, and he was shocked. The faces of the surrounding Tianqing sect disciples changed drastically. The story of Emperor Yu turning into a bear to control the flood was recorded in many ancient books such as Huainanzi. Many cultivators knew about it. Some people speculated that the black bear was the Dharma form of Yu the Great, or that Yu the Great was transformed by the black bear spirit. After all, it was an era where humans, monsters, and deities coexisted. However, most people thought that these were just myths and legends. Now that they saw it, they knew that these myths were not completely fabricated. It's just a puppet beast. Why are you so scared? Jiang Tian looked at them with disdain. This was indeed a puppet beast. It was made of dark steel from the extreme north and had a reactor inside. It was powered by crystals and chalcedony and controlled by the soul of a black bear. Its lethality was comparable to that of a golden core cultivator. It could be considered extraordinary. However, Jiang Tian had made and killed countless puppet beasts like this in his previous life. He would not take it to heart. Yes, master. Hua Qingtian looked ashamed and quickly bowed. What was more eye-catching was that there was an old man with long gray hair standing on the shoulder of the giant black iron bear. The old man was wearing a hemp robe and straw sandals. He looked like an old farmer. He was already very old, but the boundless majesty and domineering aura of an emperor still swept over and suppressed him. The old man's figure was strong and healthy. His open chest revealed his bronze skin that seemed to be cast from metal. He was full of strength. What was even more frightening was that there were 9 small cauldrons revolving around him. Every small cauldron hung down and propped up the sky. The vast aura that crushed the earth made people not dare to underestimate them in the slightest. Greetings to the descendant of Emperor Yu of the Great Xia, the patriarch of the Yu clan. With the head of the prestigious Yu family here, why should we worry about not killing Kang Tae-chu? Seeing his arrival, the old monk of Hwangju Temple and the leaders of the reclusive royalty were relieved. They all lowered their heads respectfully to show their utmost respect. Greetings, master of the Pre-Qin dynasty. Juniors such as Ji Mingchuan, Yi Yuhui, Zhu Shaochen, and Li Kuangkol knelt down and worshipped him. Their faces were filled with reverence and fear, as if they had seen a real god. That was because this old man was the descendant of Yu the Great, the current patriarch of the Yu clan, Yu Wendon. In terms of seniority, status, and strength, Yu Wendon was even higher than Li Wuji. It was said that he had once guided Li Wuji's cultivation and helped to repair the Tao of Kunlun. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Therefore, even the sect master of the Kunlun sect, Ji Muxian, had to be courteous and did not dare to offend him. Legend had it that the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies did not dare to disturb Hua Xia before the Battle of Lansang River. It was Yu Wendon who said so. Even experts like Jia Yi did not dare to provoke him. However, he had always kept a low profile and lived in seclusion, so these powerful deeds were unknown. Of course, it could also be inferred that the Holy See, Brahmin, and the European reclusive royalty must have gotten his permission to attack Jiang Tian, or at least acquiesce to it. Ah, I didn't expect that the Pre-Qin army would be on the move. I'm afraid it's hard to say who will win today. Ying Laozu sighed. My friend, the Tai Chu, should have captured those small fries first so that they would not dare to attack. Even though Chao Shixiang didn't say anything, there was a touch of fear and solemnity on his face. He clenched his fists again. He certainly knew what Ying Laozu meant. Jiang Tian shouldn't have killed them. He should have captured them. If he killed them, it would be a matter of life and death. If he captured the disciples of the Pre-Qin sect, he would have a bargaining chip. Why, Yingzu? Could it be that Grand Primordium's cultivation was inferior to theirs? Or is it because they have more people? Chao Jianjia asked. There's a secret that many people don't know. Even the Pre-Qin sects have never talked about it. Ying Laozu's face became unprecedentedly solemn. He spoke to everyone with his soul energy. It said that the Pre-Qin sects weren't simply exempted from the suppression and restraint of the deity trap array. Instead, they could be strengthened by the deity trap array. Especially the 9 cauldrons of the Yu family. Once they're activated, they can trigger the deity tribulation and divine punishment of the deity trap array. They can destroy and kill everything, and their power will increase tenfold. So, in the past dynasties, there's a saying that the emperor's family who has the 9 cauldrons will rule the world. That's why all the dynasties, including the Yinshang and the Great Zhou dynasty, wanted to fight for the 9 cauldrons. There are so many powerful treasures in the War of Gods. But the Yinshang and the Great Zhou dynasty still want the 9 cauldrons. That's how terrifying the 9 cauldrons are. I've heard of these rumors, but I wasn't sure. But after seeing the power of their Dharma treasures today, I'm sure. At this moment, he kept shaking his head in regret. Although the information was not accurate, he should have informed Jiang Tian immediately so that Jiang Tian could be prepared. But now, Jiang Tian was completely caught off guard. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's hearts skipped a beat. They fell straight into an abyss, and their faces turned ghastly pale. Not only were the Pre-Qin sects not restricted by the deity trap array, but they were also strengthened by the deity trap array. This was a huge cheat. Kang Tae-chu, come out and face your death. Yu Wendon glanced at the bloodstains left behind by Yu Jingtian. His eyes were filled with regret. But he was still a tyrant and the leader of a preeminent sect. Soon, his regret turned into anger. He glared at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily. Kang Tae-chu, how dare you kill the descendant of the Pre-Qin sects? Today, I'm afraid the Pre-Qin sects will not rest until you're dead. Not rest until you're dead. Facing the pressure of a large army, Jiang Tian's expression was relaxed. If you want to fight with me, that's fine too. I'll slaughter your Pre-Qin army and massacre all the preeminent sects. How arrogant! How arrogant! This old man knows that you, Jiang Taichu, have shocking strength, are arrogant, consider everything beneath your notice, and are unruly. Moreover, you are ferocious and your hands are stained with blood. You will annihilate entire families, armies, and countries at the slightest provocation. If this old man wasn't completely confident, do you think this old man would act rashly, even if it was to avenge the death of my son? Yu Wendon was so angry that he laughed. Kang Taichu, how dare you kill my son, Yin Zhaoge? Do you think the Yin ruins is a pushover? Yin Haojie waved his hand and the 7 fragrances carriage flew over. He held the array disc in his hand and pressed it with his fingers. Behind him, a huge array chariot burst out with bright light. The many rays of light formed the illusion of a great river that was a few miles long. The chilly wind blew and the turbid waves surged into the sky. There were white bones floating up and down, turtles, flood dragons, and water monsters swimming around. The river had 9 bends and 18 bends as it floated in the sky. 9 Yellow River Formation. In the distance, Heavenly Yi stepped in the air and shot over like a long rainbow. He said with a shocked expression, "You're too weak." He said with shock, "Rumor has it that the 3 sky fairies set up this formation in Shichi with the primeval dipper. Together with the primeval dipper, they defeated many of Jiang Ziya's armies and captured 12 famous masters of the clan of enlightenment in the Battle of God's Investiture. They cut off the 3 flowers on their heads and destroyed the 5 chi in their bodies, making them useless. I didn't expect to see it again today." Yeah, with this formation and many Dharma treasures from the pre-Qin era, Kang Taichu is really in danger. Ji Muxian followed closely behind him and shook his head with a wry smile. He wore a lotus Taoist crown and an 8 trigrams Taoist robe with a silk belt around his waist. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and wore a loose robe with big sleeves. He looked handsome and sage-like. "Brother Muxian, how can you destroy the prestige of Tianqing School and boost the spirit of others?" Hearing this, a trace of anger appeared on Heavenly Ye's face and he said coldly, "My master once swept through 3-dimensional worlds and was invincible. Do you think he's afraid of the pre-Qin era? Today, I asked you to mediate because my master doesn't want to kill more people." Ji Muxian laughed and said sarcastically, "The pre-Qin era also has their own reliance. It's not as simple as you think. In my opinion, Tai Chu only has a 10% chance of winning and the chance of survival is extremely slim. If you want to determine the winner in the battle between the strong, it must be a life and death battle. Let's not talk about who's weak and who's strong for now." Heavenly Yi sped up and flew 10 miles in a second. He said to Li Mu through his divine sense. But whether it's the Tianqing school or the pre-Qin era, they're all descendants of the Yen Emperor and the Yellow Emperor. The ruins of immortality is right in front of us. Why should we argue about the origin of the orthodoxy and who's strong and who's weak? We should fight together and defend the ruins of immortality. Brother Muxian, you must mediate today no matter what. In fact, Ji Muxian injured Yi Zhantian and destroyed his cultivation. It was already an unforgivable crime and he almost had a death feud with the Yi family. However, in order to protect the roots of the pre-Qin era and unite the strongest people, Yi Tianren still took the overall situation into consideration and disregarded the former enmity. He asked him to mediate. One had to know that Ji Muxian was a descendant of the great Zhou's Ji family and was related to the great Zhou's famous Ji family by blood. In addition, the ancestor of the great Zhou's Jiang family, Jiang Ziya, had also studied in the Kunlun Jade Mirage Palace and had a deep relationship with the Kunlun sect. Chapter 1245. Above the valley, the 9 bends Yellow River array reappeared in the world. Many people recognized this formation as well, and they couldn't help but shudder with fear and extreme shock. Chao Jianjia was so shocked that her entire body trembled. This was a terrifying array that could even trap the 12 golden immortals of the Chan school. How could Kang Taichu resist it? Facing the monstrous power of this array, Jiang Tian was calm and composed. He smiled lazily and said, "It's not enough. You want to kill me with this crude array? Dream on." Yin Haojie was furious. His eyes were sinister and resentful, but he did not say a word. At this moment, the head of the famous Ji family, Ji Shichi, stepped out with the 64 trigrams in his hand. He bowed and said, "The head of the Ji family, Ji Shichi, greets fellow Taoist Tai Chu. I'm willing to discuss yin and yang with fellow Taoist Tai Chu." He had a dignified appearance and a noble and graceful aura. He was like an emperor. His speech and actions were neither warm nor angry. He was neutral and peaceful, and he looked very sincere. However, although his words were reserved, his meaning was self-evident. He wanted to stand on the side of the Yu family and fight to the death with Jiang Tian. "Sigh, I didn't expect you to come too." Jiang Tian sighed softly and said with a smile, "Your distant ancestor, King Wen of Zhou, Ji Chang, is known as 7 years of hardship in Yuli City." The lines of the trigrams changed one by one. He understood the mysteries of the heavens and left his name as the great sage. He performed the Book of Changes and created the 6 signs observation method. He could distinguish the heavenly Tao and deduce all things. He knew how to use people well, and he knew the past, present, and future. Why don't you seek fortune and avoid disaster? Why do you have to court death? My Ji family follows nature and insists on the path of the middle. Fellow Taoist Tai Chu, on the other hand, is extreme in his actions. He kills without restraint and goes against the heavens. Ji Shichi looked at Jiang Tian and said sincerely, "Reviving spiritual energy is even more against the heavens. Such a change in the laws of heaven and earth. I'm afraid you will be punished by the heavens and will not have a good ending." "Ha, I thought that you would be a hero since you are the descendant of King Wen. Today, I see that you are just a mediocre person. What a pity." Jiang Tian laughed and shook his head. Reviving spiritual energy is going against the heavens? Whether it was the destruction of the stars or the great immortal trap formation's confinement of heaven and earth, they weren't created by the heavens but by humans. What couldn't be changed? As the saying goes, keep up with the times. Things change when the world changes. The general situation of the world has already changed. Why can't we tear apart the great immortal trap formation, defeat planet extermination, and revive the spiritual energy? Ji Shichi smiled calmly and did not refute. Instead, he looked at the person behind him and said with a faint smile, "This is Jiang Ziya's descendant, the current Jiang family's patriarch, Jiang Fisherman." Jiang Baoeng held the deity striking whip in one hand and rode on the dear god's Davids. His apricot yellow Taoist robe fluttered without wind, and it fluttered like a flag. His hair was tied into a Taoist bun, and he was handsome like an expert that had attained the Tao. "Greetings, fellow cultivator Grand Primordium." Hearing this, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he nodded at Jiang Tian. Good, good, good. Yu Wenden, Yin Haojie, Ji Shichi, and Jiang Yaoeng, the leaders of the 4 great sects of the pre-Qin dynasty, I am honored to have you here. Jiang Tian chuckled. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with murderous intent as he said coldly, "Since I have already said all the good things, you still insist on obstructing my grand plan of spiritual qi recovery. Since we each have our own opinions and no one can convince the other, then let's have a big battle to determine the winner and loser, how about it?" "Good. Kang Tae-chu, you are indeed fierce, headstrong, stubborn, and unrepentant. Since that's the case, let's see who's the real deal." Yin Haojie could no longer hold back. With a roar, he was about to drive the 7 fragrances chariot toward Jiang Tian. "Kill!" Suddenly, tens of thousands of pre-Qin soldiers roared angrily. Their angry roars soared into the sky, and violent murderous intent spread in all directions, shaking the mountains. The scene that was already in a state of confrontation was filled with an extremely horrifying and murderous aura, and it caused everyone to find it difficult to breathe and shudder with fear. Just as everyone was trembling in fear and the war was about to break out, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly, a voice sounded. "Why don't you give me face and stop for the time being? Old man, I still have a few words to say." It was Ji Muxian who floated down. Yi Tianren also landed behind Jiang Tian and said softly, Master, Ji Muxian is here. We can still negotiate today. Why don't we shake hands and make peace? Shake hands and make peace. Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows. Jiang Tian wanted to shake hands and make peace with the descendants of a few famous preaching sects. Yes, Jiang Tian previously had the idea of joining forces with them to form a mythical alliance and defend the ruins of immortality together. But that was not because Jiang Tian wanted their help and support. It was because sooner or later, Jiang Tian would step on the ancient path of the stars to enter the central galaxy and leave Earth. Therefore, he wanted to leave a prosperous cultivation civilization for Hua Xia and leave some seedlings for the pre-Qin Qi refinement cultivators. But these days, Jiang Tian had fully realized that this group of famous pre-Qin sects coveted comfort and did not know how to make progress. Moreover, they were extremely selfish. In order to protect their status, they did not hesitate to distort the truth and use the people's desire for peace to slander him. Moreover, they had already attacked him and bullied him and injured his disciples. If he did not take revenge and beat them until they knelt and surrendered, how could he, Kang Te-Chu, still have the face to be respected when he ascended the central galaxy and the immortal world in the future? Yi Tianren did things according to Jiang Tian's established strategy, but he did not know that the situation had changed. Jiang Tian already had the intention to kill. That's right, Tai Chu, you can only shake hands and make peace. Otherwise, you will definitely lose today. Ji Muxian walked to Jiang Tian and bowed. Then, he straightened his back and shook his head with a bitter smile. Hearing that, Yi Tianren frowned and was annoyed. What was wrong with Ji Muxian? He obviously did not sit straight. Jiang Tian looked at Ji Muxian calmly and chuckled. You said that I will definitely lose before we even fight? Are the famous pre-Qin sects so terrifying and powerful in your eyes? Do we still need to fight? If we do, you will die an unnatural death today. Ji Muxian snorted proudly. As the sect leader of the Kunlun sect, he knew too many secrets and inside stories. He also knew too much about the famous pre-Qin sections. It could be said that he was confident that he would not be wrong. Therefore, his attitude was very firm. Interesting. Jiang Tian frowned and muttered to himself. He smiled but did not say anything. Suddenly, he understood something. A trace of coldness and killing intent flashed in his eyes. Today, Li Wuji did not let Ji Muxian come but let Yi Karen come to persuade the famous pre-Qin sections. It was very thought-provoking. It seemed that this old thief had abandoned this stubborn Ji Muxian who had a grudge against him. In the future, Yi Karen would probably be the sect leader of the Kunlun sect. This was also in line with Li Wuji's style of doing things. This old thief's calculations were extremely shrewd. In the West Earth, Yi Karen had received his guidance several times. The Yi clan also had a deep relationship with him. If she became the sect leader, he would support her and the Kunlun sect more. It would be better than Ji Muxian. Not only did Ji Muxian have a grudge against him, but he was also a descendant of the great Zhou dynasty's famous Ji clan. He had even injured Yi Zhantian. Indeed, he had also made up his mind to deal with Ji Muxian. Seeing that Jiang Tian was silent, Ji Muxian thought that he had persuaded Jiang Tian. He stroked his long black beard and sighed leisurely. Fellow Daoist Tai Chu, you are indeed talented and powerful. However, you don't know how powerful the famous pre-Qin sects are. Let's not talk about the fact that the famous pre-Qin sects are orthodox and have the purest pre-Qin Qi refinement techniques. Let's talk about how many Dharma treasures they have. Let's talk about one thing, the immortal trap formation. They are not simply pardoned by the immortal trap formation. Instead, they are supported by the immortal trap formation's magic power. This old man knows that you seem to have a technique to deceive the immortal trap formation. However, that is only when you are cultivating in seclusion. What about when you are displaying your cultivation? You will definitely alarm the immortal trap formation and be suppressed. You will suffer the heavenly tribulation and heavenly punishment. How can you be a match for them? Oh. In your eyes, I, Kang Tae-chu, am unable to shake the immortal trap formation. So I will definitely lose. Jiang Tian frowned slightly. His face had already turned gloomy. Shake the immortal trap formation. What kind of joke is this? Ji Muxian was slightly stunned. He then shook his head and sneered. Kang Tae-chu, you have the right time, the right place, and the right people. Look at which one you have. The immortal trap formation is not on your side. All the pre-Qin cultivators and even ordinary people do not support you. Now, you are surrounded by thousands of soldiers. What chance do you have of winning? Kang Tae-chu, the world previously put you and me on the same level. They said that with me overseeing Huaxia and you overseeing overseas, Huaxia will be safe. However, in reality, in terms of experience, foresight, and judgment, you are not as good as this old man. This old man has lived for 200 years. He has experienced hundreds of battles, big and small. He has even fought the pre-Qin sects against the Brahmin and the Holy See. The old man represents authority. The old man's words represent victory and defeat. If you insist on fighting with the pre-Qin sects today, you will definitely die on the spot. The old man is only advising you because your cultivation is not easy. Admit defeat and stop the recovery of spiritual aura. He flung his sleeves and stood proudly. Although you killed the descendants of the pre-Qin sects and even the direct disciples. However, the old man still has some connections with the pre-Qin sects and has some face. As long as you lower your head and admit defeat today and sincerely repent, the old man will reluctantly put in a few good words for you. Presumably, with the pre-Qin sect's magnanimity, they will also show you mercy outside the law. No, they will kill you. They only need to cripple your cultivation and kill a few of your disciples as a warning to the world. His words were sophistry and arrogant, making Yi Tianren so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood and passed out. Daoist brother Muxian, I originally wanted you to mediate, but you're siding with one side. What do you take our Tianqing sect for? Easy to bully. Yi Tianren stepped forward and angrily rebuked. If I lower my head and admit defeat, you will let me go. However, Jiang Tian waved his hand to stop Yi Tianren. He smiled and said, you will let me go after crippling my cultivation? You will let me go after killing a few of my disciples? Ah. I didn't say. Ji Muxian took it for granted. Just as he was about to answer, Jiang Tian raised his hand and gave him a big slap. Slap. This slap came quickly and anxiously. No one expected it. Even Ji Muxian didn't react. He only felt a burning pain on his face. Amidst the crisp sound, everyone's body trembled slightly. They couldn't help but be shocked to the extreme. You've gone too far. Ji Mingchuan, Yi Yuhui, and the other Kunlun disciples were even more enraged. No matter what, Ji Muxian was the dignified leader of the Kunlun sect and a senior. However, Jiang Tian dared to slap him in public. Under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of people present and hundreds of millions of people in front of the screen, he slapped him. Jiang Taichu's way of doing things was too arrogant and domineering. He was too arrogant and overbearing. Chapter 1246. Kang Tae-chu, how dare you hit me? Ji Muxian was stunned for a moment before he realized that he had been slapped. In an instant, he was so angry that his entire body was trembling. His flushed face was trembling violently and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Who was Ji Muxian? He was the dignified sect leader of the Kunlun sect, the former #1 orthodoxy in the world. Even the prestigious pre-Qin sects had to show some respect to him. However, Jiang Tian had slapped him directly in front of hundreds of millions of people. How could he show his face in front of others in the future? Congratulations, you've learned how to answer first. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and slapped him across the air again. This time, Ji Muxian was prepared in advance. He retreated as fast as lightning. However, he felt that there were palm shadows all around him and he couldn't dodge. Smack! This slap landed solidly on Ji Muxian's face again. Two of his teeth flew out and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. If it weren't for your master, Li Wuji, I would have killed you long ago. Jiang Tian looked down at the pale Ji Muxian and scolded him harshly as if he was lecturing a child. Li Wuji and I call each other brothers and treat each other as equals. Based on seniority, you should call me uncle. What right do you have to call me by my name? Impudent. Get lost. You have no right to speak here. Remember, I didn't kill you today because you're not worthy of me killing you. In the future, someone will definitely kill you. After being humiliated by Jiang Tian, Ji Muxian glared venomously at Jiang Tian. He was so angry that his face was red and his whole body was trembling violently. The vitality in his chest was turbulent and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't dare to attack Jiang Tian. Yes, he didn't dare to. He knew that he was no match for Jiang Tian. Even if Jiang Tian was restricted by the Great Immortal Trap formation, he still had 100 ways to kill him. Good words can't persuade a damned ghost. Since you're determined to die, this old man won't pull you back. After saying that, he retreated to the outer mountain peak. He comforted himself in his heart. Anyway, this kid was going to die soon, so why bother with him? Later, I'll whip his corpse to vent my anger and grind his bones to dust. Sect Master Muxian, you are the sect master who smashed the Kunlun sect, the head of the world's Taoist sects, and a senior legendary figure. He actually dared to slap you, this is intolerable. Senior Ji, as long as you say the word, I'll chop him into pieces. Many famous pre-Qin clans and reclusive royalty showed their righteous indignation, condemning Jiang Tian in unison. However, no one dared to act rashly. Right now, it was a showdown between the leader of a famous sect and Jiang Tian. How could an average person be his opponent? Forget it. I won't bicker with a person who is about to die. Besides, he has done a great service to Huaxia. Let others kill him, I won't do it. Ji Muxian was stubborn. He sneered and pretended to be virtuous, waving his hand to interrupt the words of his fellow cultivators. Look, this is the magnanimity of a generation's legendary figure. Does Kang Te-Chu have it? How can a narrow-minded person take on such a great responsibility? Yi Yuhui snorted with a disdainful expression. Sigh, Kang Te-Chu is too arrogant because of his talent. He's too fierce and shows off his ability. Even if he survives today's crisis, he'll definitely fall in the future. The senior monk of Huangjue Temple shook his head and judged. He couldn't stand people like Jiang Tian. He was too arrogant and didn't follow the rules. He only respected the strong and didn't know how to respect his seniors. Even if his seniors were wrong, they were still his seniors. Besides, he was trying to mediate with good intentions. How could you hit him? Ji Mingchuan was so angry that he gritted his teeth and snorted. He's just a brat and he thinks he's invincible. Humph, my Kunlun sect can't beat you, but I don't believe you can match up to the famous pre-Qin sects. I'd like to see how you, Kang Te-Chu, will be trampled under the feet of the famous pre-Qin sects today. Li Kuangkol and the others snorted too. Jiang Tian was like a mountain pressing down on their heads, making them unable to breathe. They knew that Jiang Tian was too strong and couldn't catch up to him. Therefore, they were especially eager for Jiang Tian to be killed. With Ji Muxian's withdrawal from the battlefield, it also announced that Jiang Tian's last hope of making peace with the famous pre-Qin sects was shattered. Did everyone see that? Kang Te-Chu has no respect for his elders and doesn't follow the order of seniority. He's crazy. Yin Haojie sneered and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. At this time, the two sides were competing for Tao ideals, interests, and life and death. They were like fire and water. A great battle was inevitable. Kang Te-Chu, you're so ignorant. At this time, the black bear puppet stepped forward and Yu Wendon shouted. Isn't it good for everyone to live in this confinement? You don't know the profound meaning of the confinement. It's part of the bunker plan, a declaration of peace to the universe. It declares that we're a low-level civilization and won't be killed. Your recovery of spirit chi is tantamount to tearing apart the bunker and exposing Earth to the eyes and guns of the overlords in the universe. The ruins of immortality, also known as the deity ground, was originally a new territory developed by the Qing Emperor. It was connected to the ancient Earth and could have been reconciled. But you, Jiang Tian, killed people from other dimensions and caused a bloodbath. That's why the conflict is irreconcilable. The famous Preqin sects persuaded you not to recover spirit chi for the sake of the living beings on Earth, but you were stubborn and stubborn. You even killed my son in desperation. How dare you? I'm going to cut you into pieces today. As soon as he said this, the entire place fell into dead silence. Jiang Tian smiled but didn't say anything. Doesn't he know the truth about the ruins of immortality? He even said that the ruins of immortality and Earth are friends. Many people looked at each other in disbelief. It wasn't Yu Wenden's fault. He lived in another dimension and didn't know how to use modern communication devices or watch live broadcasts. How could he have known the truth about the ruins of immortality had been made public? Master, it's not like that. Yu Fenghua, Ji Mai, and the others were even more embarrassed. They hurried to talk to each other with their immortal will. Damn it, the news has already spread. Why didn't you say so earlier? Yu Wending's face immediately flushed red, and he was extremely embarrassed. His figure staggered, and he almost fell off the black bear puppet beast. Yin Haojie shouted, even if there's some misunderstanding, so what? Why can't we sit down and talk about it? Kang Taechu, you killed people. You're looking down on the famous Preqin sections. You must be killed. He argued unreasonably, using clever words and expressions to distort black and white. Why don't you check how many people Kang Taechu has killed over the years? How can he take on such a big responsibility? Indeed. Even if the spirit chi revival is inevitable, this guy can't be left alive, let alone control the Myth Alliance. Kang Taechu, hand over the spirit chi revival seeds and the control of the spirit guiding array, and we'll spare your life. Ji Shichi snorted as murderous intent appeared in his eyes. Hand it over. Jiang Yueng said concisely. Interesting. Shameless. Jiang Tian smiled. Yu Jingtian and the others wanted to attack Kang Taechu's dojo and kill my disciples. I, Kang Taechu, deserve to die. Could it be that you will only be satisfied if I, Jiang Taichu, stretch out my neck to be executed without any resistance? Now you've made a big mistake. Not only do you not repent, but you want to kill me again. Where's justice? Where's the logic? It seems that Yu Jingtian and the others are not so arrogant for no reason. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. It's all because of your parents. Yu Jingtian and the other two were embarrassed and speechless. In fact, Jiang Tian's words made sense. The famous Preqin sects were unreasonable. Jiang Tian had invited them to discuss the spirit chi revival plan, and his attitude was very friendly. Instead, it was Yu Jingtian and the others who, for their own personal gain, had distorted the truth and misled the public. They wanted to kill Jiang Tian and attack the Heavenly Clear sect disciples first. Everyone was speechless. Only Yin Haojie straightened his neck and roared, Kang Taechu, are you an idiot? You've been around for so many years. Don't you know that in the cultivation world, the strong are respected and the weak are ants? This is the truth. You're just ants, insects. Under the immortal trap, other than the famous Preqin sects, everyone else is ants. You, Kang Taechu, are just an ant in our eyes. You're a lowly life. Why do we, the famous Preqin sects, need to reason with an ant like you? What justice? Do you know how to reason with ants and cockroaches that you've trampled to death? We'll kill you if we say so. You should wash your neck and wait for us to chop your head off. How dare you resist? Ha 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 ha, we were just talking about seniority. Now, we're talking about who has the bigger fist and who's right. Jiang Tian laughed loudly. His laughter was like the roar of a dragon and the roar of a tiger. Although he was laughing, there was an indescribable chill in his voice. Then, he stopped laughing and sneered. No matter what you say, we'll still have to fight in the end. Let's fight. I, Kang Tae-chu, am not good at anything else, but when it comes to fighting, I've never bowed down to anyone in the universe. He sneered and said, come on. I can't wait to twist your heads off and kick them like balls. Guys, why are you still talking nonsense with a small fry like him? Let's kill him. Yin Haojie was the most hot-tempered one. He couldn't stand it when Yin Chaoga died in front of him. He roared and was the first to attack. He raised his hand and the golden whip in his hand broke the sound barrier. It turned into a golden light and pierced toward Jiang Tian. Chapter 1247. As the golden whip flew out, the wind howled and thunder and lightning intertwined. An earth-shattering sea of thunder was formed. Moreover, the golden whip grew bigger in the wind and became dozens of meters long. It was like a cruise missile, with a strange and shrill roar. The long white turbulence dragged into a long tail and pierced toward Jiang Tiandong with amazing power. This is the male whip of the male and female double whips used by Grand Preceptor One of the Shang dynasty. It has 26 segments and each segment has 4 talisman seals. It is used to attack the 8 righteous deities. Senior Tai Chu, be careful. Seeing this, Yi Karen's pretty face turned pale. She shouted to remind Jiang Tian. Even though she was full of fighting spirit and had experienced many battles, she was still frightened by the terrifying power. Humph, after this battle, I must kill this woman. Hearing this woman mention the origin of the whip, Ji Muxian glared at Yi Karen angrily and then sneered. It's no exaggeration to say that this whip can kill a nascent soul stage heavenly lord. Kang Tae-chu is restricted by the immortal trapping formation. He won't be able to withstand it. Among the treasures of the Shang dynasty, this item was ranked in the top 5. It was far more powerful than ordinary spiritual treasures and could be called a quasi-genuine weapon. This was the terror of the pre-Qin prestigious sections. Even though their cultivation methods were incomplete and they had few talents, they were rich and had many magic treasures. In the past, they were on par with the Shang Emperor. You're just an ant. How dare you kill me? Facing this divine whip, Jiang Tian's eyes were indifferent. He didn't even disperse the thick earth god-suppressing chains. Instead, he raised his hand and punched. The vast true vitality immediately turned into a fist the size of a small mountain. It looked like a beautiful jade sculpture and was dazzling. It hit the whip. Clang! Suddenly, a loud sound of metal colliding rang out. Many people covered their ears, but their ears were bleeding and their eardrums were ruptured. They almost fainted on the spot. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, the golden whip that was like a cruise missile was knocked away. With a loud boom, the golden whip shot uncontrollably into the army formation, crushing several hundred of the pre-Qin clans. Their corpses fell like rain, and it only stopped when it shattered a mountain peak. As for that giant jade white fist, it remained motionless. Only when Jiang Tian withdrew his fist did it transform back into true essence. It was clear that Jiang Tian had the complete upper hand. What? Seeing this scene, Yin Haojie's entire body trembled, and he was greatly shocked. Even Yu Wendon and the other 2 leaders of the famous sects were slightly stunned. He actually sent it flying. Ji Muxian was flabbergasted as well. He felt extremely awkward and felt as if he had been slapped in the face. Whip! Just as Yin Haojie was about to retrieve the golden whip, Jiang Tian waved his hand and took the golden whip into his hand. He easily erased the divine sense imprint on it and threw it to Huqing Tian. Take it. This is a lightning element magic treasure that contains the energy of wind and lightning. I'll refine it in the future and give it to the disheveled old man, Zhang Qianlei. Kang Tae-chu, give me back my treasure. Yin Haojie was taken aback and shouted angrily in a hurry. Everyone was immediately speechless. Can you be a little more shameless? You used a magic treasure to hit him and your magic treasure was taken away. Do you have any more treasures? Come and hit me. I'll take all of them. Jiang Tian said coldly with his hands behind his back. I'm so pissed off. Kill. Yin Haojie shouted and took out a magic treasure that looked like a toilet bowl and threw it at Jiang Tian. This thing has a strange shape. Is it a golden toilet bowl? The famous sects of the Pre-Qin dynasty are indeed rich. Even their toilet bowls are made of pure gold. In the live stream room, bullet comments popped up one after another. This should be the legendary primeval chaos golden chalice, the most precious treasure of the Jie sect. It shone in the War of Gods and even captured the 12 golden deities of the Chan sect. If nothing goes wrong, the 9 Yellow Tunes River Array will also be activated. Ji Muxian's eyes lit up once again and his spirit was greatly shaken. In his eyes, Jiang Tian was already a dead man. So it's the primeval chaos golden chalice. This time, Kang Taechu is in danger. If you don't listen to your elders, you'll suffer. The old monk of Huangjue Temple shook his head and smiled bitterly. He sighed with slight relief and regret. The primeval chaos golden chalice contained the wonders of heaven and earth. Karma was unknown, tribulations were unknown, and divine powers were unknown. It was known as holding the universe and the 4 seas, allowing one to collect all the treasures. It was extremely powerful and was always successful in collecting people and items. As soon as this treasure appeared, golden light filled the sky and shook the surroundings. Sand and stones flew between heaven and earth. Endless bright golden light shot toward Jiang Tian's head like lightning. This treasure is extraordinary. Jiang Tian's face turned serious for the first time. Others might not know the cause of this treasure, but Jiang Tian understood at a glance. It was made of primeval chaos gold and contained Tao Tai Dao patterns. This gold was known as the pristine gold of heaven and earth. Although it was weaker than divine materials, it was at least an immortal material. The Tao Tai Dao patterns inscribed in it were also extraordinary. It could devour all things and was not much weaker than the sky-devouring demonic gourd. It might even be better. Good. Primeval chaos golden chalice, this is more like it. However, Jiang Tian was not shocked. Instead, he was delighted. He took a step forward and his eyes revealed the ecstasy of an old hunter who saw his prey. With a crack in his dantian, several thick earth god-suppressing chains exploded. The vermilion bird fake elixir jumped. Jiang Tian waved his fingers. A ray of vermilion bird fire formed a 100-meter-long flaming saber and slashed down. Whoosh! As the saber slashed out, a wave of heat spread out. Within a radius of 10 miles, the trees were instantly scorched. Black smoke even rose up and caught fire. The saber radiance was dazzling, causing people to tear up. Many people subconsciously closed their eyes. Only a few top experts felt it with their divine senses. Under Jiang Tian's blazing saber radiance, the primeval chaos golden chalice could only hold on for a few seconds. Then, like a hot saber, it was slashed by the saber and split into 2 pieces. Jiang Tian raised his hand and took it into his hand. What? Even the primeval chaos golden chalice can be slashed. What evil technique is he cultivating? Ji Muxian and the old monk of Huangjue Temple suddenly screamed like cats whose tails had been stepped on. They could not believe it. Kill! Activate the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation for me. This time, the backlash of the primeval chaos golden chalice was so strong that Yin Haojie's dantian trembled violently. He spat out blood and his face was twisted in pain like a ferocious ghost. He staggered and took 3 steps back in a row. A trace of determination flashed across his face and he shouted loudly. Then, he activated the formation disc in his hand and turned it 9 times. Let me borrow the Yellow River of 10,000 miles. Boom! In the Yinshang army behind him. On a huge formation chariot, many formation components suddenly rotated according to the positions of the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams. The formation chi filled the heaven and earth. The Dharma momentum was like the Yellow River. Boundless and boundless, it enveloped Jiang Tian. The chilly wind blew and the black fog filled the air. The sun and the moon were lost. Leisurely and indistinct. The miserable air rushed to the sky and the haze covered the earth. The murderous aura of the 9 Yellow River formation of 9 bends instantly enveloped a radius of 10 miles. It filled the entire valley and even affected the surrounding mountains full of spectators. A single strand of the formation chi of this killing formation could kill a foundation establishment expert. Moreover, it was boundless right now. The endless and tragic haze of the formation chi swept toward Jiang Tian like raging waves beating the shore. The miasma of the formation chi had a spiritual attack that could destroy one's soul. No matter how hard one cultivated for 1,000 years, it would be reduced to a flat cake. It would damage one's spirit and dishearten one's spirit. This formation is terrifying. Even immortals can't reach it. It has cut off the 3 flowers on the top. Even if the Buddha comes, it will also eliminate the 5 chi in the chest. Seeing this, the shock on Ji Muxian's face faded. His gaze became cold and stern. He sneered proudly. Kang Te Chu, you don't know your limits. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You can't escape from this formation. I'm afraid you'll die today. Yin Haojie, how can you do this? Tens of thousands of engineers are assembling the spirit-guiding formation here. Hundreds of thousands of spectators are watching. Are you going to kill them too? Seeing this, Chao Shixiang's face turned pale. He then shouted angrily. At this moment, the formation covered a radius of 10 miles and was still expanding. Soon, the miasma of the formation chi spread to the spectators. Those who touched it died immediately and turned into blood and bones in the blink of an eye. Run quickly. On the surrounding mountains, countless spectators saw this scene. They couldn't help but be scared out of their wits. They fled in all directions. Don't step on me. Someone save me. Kang Te Chu, save me. Aren't you, the savior of the world? Soon, there was a stampede. Wan, who was wearing high heels, fell to the ground. She screamed miserably. In the blink of an eye, she was trampled into meat paste and died. Until the moment of her death, her face was filled with astonishment and fear. She never expected that she would die in the hands of a famous Preqin family who had always supported Jiang Tian. She shouted the names of Jiang Tian and the savior of the world. I can activate this formation, but I can't control it. All of you will be buried with Kang Te Chu. Yin Haojie held the activation disc in his hand and spun it continuously. His eyes were ruthless and cruel. He said with a fierce voice, Chao Shixiang, you're a veteran of the battlefield, but you're only soft-hearted. Don't you know which emperor didn't step on the corpses of the common people to ascend to the throne? We, the descendants of Yin Shang, kill people like killing ants. Good. Is this how you famous Preqin families do things? Jiang Tian glanced at the people around him who fell one after another. This was the first time he was angry. He snorted coldly and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Although he had lived 2 lives and killed countless people, he had always killed people who deserved to be killed. He had never killed innocent people like Yin Haojie. Today, I, Kang Te Chu, will let the blood of the famous Preqin families spill over the entire valley of Mount Ame. After today, there will be no Preqin families in Huaxia. Before Jiang Tian's voice had even died away, a flame rushed out from his dantian and turned into the divine body of vermilion bird with huge wings that stretched across the sky. It was blazing red and it soared into the sky. Chapter 1248. The Suzaku divine body burst out. Even though the thick earth god-suppressing chains were suppressing his cultivation, he was still like a sun in the sky. He spat out endless flames that were thousands of meters long and swept across the sky. The moment the vermilion bird true fire and the 9 bends Yellow River formation's formation chi came into contact with each other, it was like hot oil coming into contact with fire. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the sky within dozens of miles was ignited and there seemed to be a giant fire shield in the sky. How is this possible? Yin Haojie was dumbfounded and turned pale with fright. The 9 Yellow Tunes River Array was an ancient array that was used to destroy divine souls and bodies. However, it was so vulnerable in front of Jiang Tian. But he didn't know. The Red Phoenix True Fire was the most powerful divine beast fire in the universe. It could even suppress the 36 divine fires in the world. When it was refined to the extreme, it could burn the sky and destroy planets. There was nothing it couldn't burn, not to mention the array chi of the 9 Yellow Tunes River Array. Crackle! Crackle! The originally dark clouds, chilly winds, and black miasma permeating the air were instantly swept clean. There were no clouds in the sky and the sun shone brightly. Thank you, Sect Master of the Taichu sect, for saving us. Savior! This is the power of God. This is the power of heaven. In a blink, countless onlookers stopped running and knelt on the ground. They cried and worshipped Jiang Tian. How is this possible? Fire refines the sky and the red phoenix breaks the array. This is simply unparalleled divine might. Seeing this, Ji Muxian and the old monk of Huangjue Temple were shocked. They felt as if their faces had been slapped by Jiang Tian. They thought that Jiang Tian would definitely die every time he used the Dharma treasures and arrays of the pre-Qin dynasty. But the result? They had never thought that Jiang Tian would be so powerful. They had underestimated Jiang Tian again and again. Kill him again. I don't believe that I can't kill you. Yin Haojie was shocked and furious. His red eyes were about to spurt blood. The array in his hands spun 9 times, trying to activate the 9 Yellow Tunes River Array again. Die! Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian had already put away the Red Sparrow divine body and shot up like a rocket. He instantly broke 10 times the speed of sound and charged towards Yin Haojie and the army. Yellow-scarfed strongman. Open the formation, open the formation. Yin Haojie's face turned pale with fright. He was so scared that he almost dropped the disc array in his hand. Activate the formation. Immediately, the yellow-scarfed strongmen roared and attacked. Within the military formation, the Sky Annihilation Formation, the Earth Scorching Formation, the Wind Howling Formation, the Ice Formation, the Golden Light Formation, and more than a dozen formation chariots were pushed out. Then, they roared together, and light filled the sky. The vast power of the formations attacked Jiang Tian. Strange phenomena appeared in the sky. The first formation was filled with lightning and thunder, the second formation was filled with howling winds and gathering clouds, the third formation was burning with fire, the fourth formation was freezing everything within 10 miles, and the fifth formation was turning black sand into blood. The power of each layer of the formation was shocking and could kill a golden core cultivator. Moreover, they were endless, and they overlapped and attacked Jiang Tian from all directions. Open, open, open. Jiang Tian's black hair fluttered in the wind as he threw out one punch after another. Each of his punches was powerful enough to shake a mountain. Boom, boom, boom. A series of thunderous sounds were heard. Jiang Tian destroyed a layer of formations with a single punch, and even broke 2 layers of formations in a row. He shattered the formation chariot and shook the yellow scarf warrior to the point of vomiting blood. In the end, even the 9 Tunes Yellow River Formation chariot was destroyed, and he forcefully made a bloody path out of the formation. Swish! Jiang Tian flashed and appeared 100 meters in front of Yin Haojie. He looked cold and waved his fingers. Suddenly, a dazzling golden sword light, which was hundreds of meters long, slashed out horizontally like a knife cutting through water. Block it! Yin Haojie yelled and his face changed color. He had used a lot of energy to activate the formation and was already at the end of his rope. He took out his white axe and tried to block the attack. Yin Haojie can't hold on anymore. Save him! At the side, Jiang Baoeng let out a light shout. The god-beating whip in his hand struck out towards Jiang Tian, attempting to surround Wei to rescue Zhao. He raised his hand and tried to grab the Wuji apricot yellow flag from Jiang Feibai. He then swept it towards Yin Haojie. The god-beating whip enlarged and became 100 meters long. It was 10 times stronger than the golden whip passed down by Grand Preceptor Wen. It was like a giant pillar that covered the sky and smashed towards Jiang Tian. Rise! Jiang Tian's dantian rumbled. The earth-winged dragon's body burst out. It held the myriad stone cauldron and swung it like a giant mountain. At this time, the earth-winged dragon was still wrapped in the god-suppressing chains. It sealed its cultivation and hid its fake elixir. It was only 100 meters tall. However, its power was extraordinary. It smashed the god-beating whip a few thousand meters away and smashed a mountain. This is the winged dragon. Its power is so terrifying. Jiang Baoweng noticed that the runes on the god-beating whip were worn out and there were even a few cracks. He was scared out of his wits. Swish! The Wuji apricot yellow flag wrapped around Yin Haojie only blocked Jiang Tian's Gung Jin sword light for a moment before it was torn apart and fluttered away like a rag. Jiang Baoweng couldn't help but take a few steps back. His face was as pale as paper. His Dantian's divine sense suffered a backlash and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but feel as if he had seen a demon. The Pre-Qin Supreme Treasure God-Beating Whip and Wuji Apricot Yellow Flag are actually not Kang Teichu's opponent. This kid is comparable to an ancient god. What kind of cultivation is he? These two treasures were famous existences in the investiture of the gods' era. They had killed countless experts. Even in the ruins of immortality, they could be called quasi-true weapons. Yet, they couldn't stop Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Baoweng's action also gave Yin Haojie the time to dodge and the others time to attack. Kang Teichu, die! Ji Shiqi shouted. With a flip of his palm, a shiny golden mirror appeared. This mirror was the size of a wash basin and emitted a scorching golden light. It suddenly attacked and soared into the sky, turning into a comet that shot towards Jiang Tian. King Wen's Tai Chi 8 trigrams mirror. Everyone was shocked and their eyes were filled with shock. According to legend, this treasure was personally forged by King Wen. Its magic power was enormous and vigorous. It could expel evil and suppress evil, kill demons, and subdue demons. With this mirror, the Ji family was ranked second among the 4 famous families. It was even stronger than the famous families of Yin Shang and was only slightly inferior to the Yu family. Crack! Crack! The protruding spherical surface of the mirror contained Yin and Yang fishes. It carried Yin and embraced Yang, hugging each other and revolving forever. As soon as this mirror appeared, golden light shone brightly. Yin and Yang alternated and spun non-stop, giving birth to 4 divisions. The 4 divisions spun, urging the power of the 8 trigrams of heaven, earth, wind, thunder, water, fire, mountain, and lake to attack Jiang Tian. Suddenly, rumble. Colorful light pillars pierced through the void, alternating with each other and changing endlessly as they shot towards Jiang Tian. Rumble. Wherever the light pillars shot, huge pits of 5 to 6 miles in diameter appeared on the ground. Mountains collapsed one after another. A light pillar shot out was comparable to the bombardment of a cluster missile. It wasn't much weaker than a nuclear weapon. At this moment, Ji Muxian and the old monk of Huangjue Temple, as well as many famous Pre-Qin families and reclusive royalty, were shocked speechless. The power of such a Dharma treasure had exceeded their imagination. Go! Meanwhile, Yu Wenden's gray hair fluttered in the wind. He performed the Dipper steps and chanted a spell. He raised his hand and tapped the back of the giant bear's head. Then, he soared into the sky and left the giant bear's shoulder. Rumble. Roar. The black bear puppet roared angrily. Flames spewed out from the soles of its feet. In the sky, it was as if a giant meteorite had streaked across. Flames erupted from the friction between its body and the air. The white turbulence of the air and the black smoke intertwined to form a long tail. It charged straight towards Jiang Tian. No one could describe the power of this black bear. Its solid and heavy body was like a falling mountain or a planet hitting the earth. Its giant paw slammed down towards Jiang Tian's head. Sky-trampling mountain-splitting palm. This was the palm attack that the armored black bear had accumulated over countless years. Countless years ago, it had used this palm attack to help Emperor Yu split open mountains and dredge rivers, controlling the Great Flood. Now, with the eruption of countless crystals, this palm attack was enough to smash an aircraft carrier and turn a city into dust. Yin Haojie took the opportunity to drive the Seven Fragrances chariot and retreated a few hundred meters in an instant. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and sneered. Hee hee, Kang Tae-chu, you can't kill me after all. I'd like to see how long you can be so fierce. Humph. Petty tricks. At times, Jiang Tian was like an old ape circling around a tree. At other times, he was like a white crane soaring in the sky. He moved quickly and easily dodged the light pillars of the Tai Chi 8 trigrams mirror. He approached the black bear puppet and finally raised his green jade-like fist and punched towards the armored black bear. At this time, Jiang Tian had not activated his Dharma power. Compared to the giant bear that was a few hundred meters tall, he was like an ant. This punch was also neither hot nor cold. It looked light as a feather. Humph, he wants to fight the black bear puppet with his physical body. He's courting death. Ji Muxian sneered. Even the old monk of Huangjue Temple laughed. Jiang Tian was too arrogant. This punch would be like scratching an itch. He might even be seriously injured. But when this punch was thrown, boom! The void trembled as if heaven and earth were in chaos. The sun and the moon were upside down. The bright golden fist aura shot up like a golden dragon dancing in the sky. The vast fist force crossed a distance of 1,000 meters and landed on the giant bear's chest. One could even see that where the fist force passed, black spatial cracks appeared in the void. He had broken through the void with his physical body. With a loud clang, the sound was like a huge bell that shook people's hearts. Everything within 100 miles trembled. With the giant bear as the center, huge white cloud rings spread out in all directions like water ripples. In the blink of an eye, they spread out to a radius of 10 miles. Wherever the overlapping rings of clouds passed, the earth would tremble like the skin of a drum. Trees would turn into fine powder, and rocks would pierce through the air and shatter into pieces. At the moment when it was hit, the giant black bear paused. Its lantern-like eyes dimmed for a moment, revealing shock and disbelief. But in the next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, the black bear puppet's chest, which was made of dark steel from the extreme north and could withstand nuclear weapons without fearing a volley of missiles, suddenly had huge cracks appear on its chest. The cracks spread rapidly and covered its entire body like a spider web in the blink of an eye. Then, a huge fist mark with a radius of 10 meters protruded from its back. Boom! There was a loud noise. All of a sudden, the reaction furnace inside shot out streaks of sharp, arrow-like light from the gaps between the puppets, quickly melting the almost crumbling shell into molten iron. Then, the entire armored black bear exploded uncontrollably. Everyone was shocked. What? Even the armored black bear was blown up by his punch. How can he be so powerful? Yin Haojie, Ji Shiqi, and Jiang Yaoeng all sucked in a breath of cold air. The black bear puppet was also. Impossible. That's impossible. Even Yu Wendon was shocked as he roared in disbelief.